Please be seated. Good evening and welcome to the Council meeting. I'm Councillor Tom Bennett, the Mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the Council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72 seconds silence. Would everyone please stand? Please be seated. Item 1 is the minutes of the Council meeting held on 28th of January 2026. The minutes have been circulated. There was a minor correction which is included in the supplementary pack. Are those minutes agreed as a correct record? Agreed. Item 2 is declarations of interest, slightly longer one as this is the budget meeting. Does any member wish to make a declaration pursuant to Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, which relates to members' council tax payments and the ability of members to vote on matters relating to the level or calculation of council tax or the arrangements for administering council tax? No. No declarations. Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? No. No declarations. Item 3 is special announcements. It's with great sadness that I must inform the Council of the death of former Mayor and Pembridge Ward Councillor Honorary Alderman Miss Dorene Weatherhead. In her 47 years service on this council, Dorene served as Deputy Mayor in 1979 to 1980 and was Mayor in 1994 to 1995. She chaired numerous committees and was appointed an Honorary Alderman in 2015. Please join me in standing for a minute's silence. Thank you. Now, 4 members have indicated that they would like to speak about Dorene. I'll start with Councillor Gardner.
Mr Mayor, thank you for letting me lead the tributes about my wonderful predecessor as Pembridge Councillor of 47 years, the Honourable Alderman Dorene Weatherhead, who died earlier this month. She was a force of nature who loved the residents of Pembridge and fought hard for each and every one of them. She came to the UK from Barbados as an 18-year-old to study radiography, and she set up home in a flat in Canricard Gardens in Pembridge Ward. Except for her last few weeks of ill health, she lived in Kensington until she was 94, and in that same flat for most of those years. She was first elected as a councillor for Pembridge Ward in May 1964 to the newly formed borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Pembridge Ward alone had 6 councillors, unheard of today. Dorene was part of a Conservative council that won 46 of the 60 seats. She was very upset to lose her seat in 1971, but regained it in 1974. She never lost her seat again, with her personal vote increasing, and worked tirelessly for the ward and residents. I remember her telling me that she had persuaded some young Conservatives to stand as Papist candidates alongside her in Pembridge, and worked to irate calls as they were elected, and found that their next 4 years were accounted for. She did love the YCs, and she was thrilled to win a Hillman Imp car in a raffle. Prior to the introduction of the Cabinet, the Council was run via a committee system, and over her career, Dorene chaired the Libraries and General Services Committee, the Works Committee, Street Trading Subcommittee, and the Highways and Traffic Committee, to name but a few. She was also a key figure on the Licensing Committee for 13 years, and in creating the treasured midnight hour policy under the new Licensing Act. Dorene loved being a trustee of the Pepperpot Club Centre in North Kensington, which brings together the elders of the Caribbean and the African community. It was her home from home. She was often singing the praises of her homeland of Barbados, and one night after a full council meeting, we had a rum punch challenge, when Dorene's Barbados rum punch faced a taste-off from another councillor's Barbadian rum punch. No prize for guessing who her take on was who'd won. Despite Dorene's length of service, she only became mayor in 1994, having served as deputy in 1979. It was a deliberate choice by her, as an ex-councillor of Kensington, Sir Christopher Walford, was to be Lord Mayor of the City of London that same year, and she wanted their mayoralties to coincide. She loved the year, and she picked the youngest councillor, Edward Hess, as her deputy. Dorene knew my parents long before I knew her. They bumped into each other in the supermarket, and it transpired that I had moved into Pembridge Ward. She said she'd give me 6 months to settle in before coming round with a membership form. And sure enough, 6 months later, I was on her ward committee. You didn't really argue with Dorene, nor did you want to be on the wrong side of the argument. She was a walking encyclopedia of all things, local and political, and I was very much the new kid on the block. However, she was always very supportive to us young ones and offered very good advice. She knew every council officer and who to speak to, and was very much a guiding force to me as a councillor. I think we disagreed on 2 things in the 35 years that I knew her. The first was her smoking. That was allowed indoors at meetings, and that led me to sit at the other end of the table next to the Labour councillors in committee meetings as she lit up. She used to get very annoyed that I was seemingly siding with the opposition. And secondly, when I dropped the title Miss, so I was no longer known as Councillor Miss Joanna Gardner. That was probably the only battle I ever won. I think the only time I saw Dorene speechless was when she was made an honorary alderman of the borough in 2015. She was so overwhelmed by the honour for that 18-year-old girl who'd arrived from Barbados, but it was very richly deserved for her 47 years as councillor. There will be a memorial service for Dorene at St Mary Abbott's Church in Kensington Church Street on Thursday the 21st of April at 2 p.m, followed by refreshments. Doreen was always very proud of her heritage and her homeland of Barbados, and she never lost her accent. And it's only fitting that she has asked that her ashes be taken back to Barbados to be reunited with her family. But Kensington was Doreen's other home. She made her life in the Royal Borough and dedicated her life to the Royal Borough, in particular Pembridge Ward. It was a privilege to know her, learn from her, and follow in her footsteps as a Pembridge councillor. May she rest in peace. Yeah.
Councillor Wade.
Thank you. Everyone would recognise that Doreen was a formidable woman and a dedicated councillor. My experience of Doreen was primarily when she was chair of the licensing committee, where she was totally in control of any situation and totally terrifying. One of the most memorable cases when she sat on a committee to determine a case for a massage parlour in Earl's Court, over which there were local concerns as to the precise nature of the services provided. These concerns were confirmed by the licensing officer. The applicant only spoke Chinese and spoke through her solicitor. The staff were predominantly of Eastern European origin. It was a delight to see Doreen cross-examine the applicant and their team. It was pure theatre and something that I think we all miss. Not many people put themselves forward for 47 years of service and commitment as Doreen did to her residents of Pembridge Ward and the council. May she rest in peace.
Councillor Lindsay.
Served as a councillor for 47 years. That was half her life. That is a truly impressive commitment. She was a very loyal colleague and believed that things should be done properly. I was her deputy on the Tables and Chairs Committee that she chaired for many years. She was assiduous in her chairing and probably knew more about the different laws and regulations than the rest of us put together. As I have said, she believed that things should be done properly. On one occasion, I attended a function in the mayor's parlour wearing a jacket and tie when the stated dress code was lounge suit. I will long remember her face as she came over to me and gave me a haranguing in the nicest but firmest possible way. Standards are standards, David, she said, and must be adhered to. Thank you.
Councillor Wheel.
Other speakers have magnificently captured Doreen, and she was a really wonderful ward councillor, and let's face it, that's what we're all primarily here to do. But she also was completely terrifying to a young councillor, I have to say. And she came from a generation, actually, of formidable women councillors who were really quite groundbreaking. Councillors like Joan Hannam, our previous leader, but also Liz Russell, and there were several others in that sort of group who really led the way and made life for the rest of us, younger councillors, in a way much easier, whilst terrifying us to bits. I know that she and Liz Russell used to have quite firm opinions on what we as younger councillors wore. I got a bit of a bye because she'd known my father as a dashing doctor at St George's, where she was a nurse. And so that meant that she had a slight soft spot for me, for which I was forever grateful. I think it's possibly the thing I was most grateful to my father for in my life. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. She was formidable, but she did have a heart of gold, and I think we as a borough are very lucky to have experienced her years of service.
Fantastic. We now move on to item 4. Chief Executive, are there any apologies for absence? Oh, sorry, apologies. Yes, Councillor Schmetterling.
Apologies for arriving late, I had meetings. I've known Councillor Weatherhead for decades, from the Pembridge Association Conservation Society Committee, in which she was very active. And I agree with everything that's been said. I'd just like to add that when I came to get her to sign my form in 2018, you know, the nomination form, and I was carrying the form for two of us, and she was about number 4 on the list. And anyway, she signed my form when she was still living in Clanry Card Gardens, and then she saw my fellow candidate, Laura, around, and she asked, who is she? Does she live in the ward? And I said, no, but next door, Norland. It took me about 10 minutes to persuade her to sign the form, because it would have made an administrative headache if I didn't have it. But it was very good knowing her and working with her on the Pembridge Association. I couldn't say in the council, obviously, because she retired in 2014. And, well, all I can say is rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, Chief Executive, any apologies for absence or lateness?
Thank you. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Adam, Ahmed, Bakhtiar, Marshall, Rossi and Svedeniuk. And I've received lateness apologies from Councillors Thaxter and Councillor Yankson.
Thank you. Item 5 is public speaking. I will invite those who have registered to address the Council in turn for up to 5 minutes each. And we have 2 people who have requested to speak. I believe one is joined us in person and one I will be reading out. For the benefit of members and those who might be watching online, could I ask all speakers to start your speech by introducing yourself and stating if you're speaking on your own behalf or on behalf of a broader group. So I've got it down. So Dr. Desmond Biddulph was due to speak first, and he's now submitted a written statement, which I shall read out. Thank you for this opportunity to ask an important question to the leadership, environment and planning departments about the issue of abandonment. The abandoned site is located on 188A Fulham Road, SW10, and leased by a company registered in Mauritius but using the brand name of Virgin Active. The freeholder is British Land, a blue-chip company that prides itself on being green. The site has been abandoned and not adequately maintained for over 5 years. Abandonment caused a collapsed ceiling, blocked gutters, broken drain pipes and flooding. No attempt was made to reopen or maintain this site. Is the Council aware of the public history of harm caused by Virgin Active clubs, and how does it intend to prevent further harm? Isn't enforcement only treating the symptom rather than preventing the cause? Preventative medicine is a way forward, rather than local residents being left with costs of top chambers, architects and surveyors for accurate reports. All of this on top of escalating rates in order to protect themselves from what was allowed to be an abandoned site for over half a decade. How is the Council protecting these same residents in a conservation area from further harm from this site? What responsibility can the Council assume over usage of an abandoned site when balancing the long-standing needs of the local community? Councillor Thalasitas, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Dr. Biddulph for raising this important question. I agree that we all want to see buildings in the borough, especially in conservation areas, occupied and well kept. I understand there was a pre-application discussion for the site, but no planning application was submitted. But the ward councillors are aware that the applicant will be socialising a revised plan with residents at public events next week, and I know that ward councillors will take a close interest. Although the building has been unused for some time, the threshold for abandonment in planning law is very high, and the site doesn't meet that test. But I certainly recognise the importance of giving residents confidence that any risks to amenity or local character are being properly managed. So I've asked officers to look again at the site and advise me on recommended actions. We're also considering more generally how the council can support local people where long-term inactivity on commercial premises creates uncertainty, and I hope that the applicant can address some of those concerns directly with residents and ward councillors soon. I'd be very happy to visit the area with ward councillors in the coming weeks if that's helpful too.
Councillor El Nagi, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank our resident, Dr. Desmond Bidolph, for raising this critical and serious issue, and to acknowledge the very real impact that this has, this prolonged effects on the neighboring residents, in particular in conservation area. And this is the critical matter here. Sites as he mentioned, the Fulham Road site, involving major commercial interests, including British Land and operators using Virgin active name, must not be allowed to deteriorate in ways it's happened, because it has a serious effect on our local community, and having the financial implication which can have a serious burden on our residents. I would welcome the lead member who's offered to visit the area, and I would urge the lead member as well to consider what further action can be taken, not only to address this issue here, but to strengthen monitoring process, so we don't need just residents to come with this, and to have early intervention to save the area and have a preventable measure for the future. May I use this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to thank as well our residents, because I think we have abundant area in my ward, and maybe in Kensington. It will be nice to have a list. And to thank my residents in Nottingdale for giving me the opportunity to serve them and the wider community on this council. And I'm sure we all agree that our residents deserve a more proactive rather than just reactive role. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you to Dr. Bidolph for his question. Ms. Dejalis Lechumanaya, would you like to address the Council?
Ladies and gentlemen of the Council, good evening. My name is Jalisla Chumanaya. I'm talking for myself, but I'm also talking for the tenant of Portobello Green Arcade. I am an artisan jeweler. I'm the founder of Jalis Creation. I'm the founder of Grove Alliance CIC, where we deliver silversmithing workshop within our community. For 7 years, I've been a tenant at Portobello Green Arcade, a place that has been not only my business premises, but my professional and community home. Previously, I held a 3 years renewable lease, which provided stability and allowed me to plan, invest, and grow. Today, like several fellow tenants of the arcade, I am on a lease at will, a lease that can be terminated at any time for any reason, or for any reason, or for no reason, which in practice can be exploitative and abusive. This creates profound insecurity. No small business can responsibly plan under the constant threat of removal without cause. The impact is not merely financial. It creates spiral effect across every area of our lives: professional, personal, social, and psychological. It affects our health, our family, our ability to invest, and ultimately our existential security. Our livelihoods become fragile and our future uncertain. We are simply asking for secure, fair lease arrangements that provide the basic protection any responsible business owner should expect. In addition, we have experienced a 60% increase previous to last year in service charges. We recognize that service charges are necessary. We should pay service charge. However, there has been a serious lack of transparency and accountability. We received no prior estimates. Demand were issued months later and backdated, leaving tenants facing sudden financial burden of 8 to 12,000. For independent traders, this is destabilizing and potentially catastrophic. At the same time, there is a little visible marketing support. The arcade is misrepresented with outdated information. Our signage is obstructed. The layout of stall reduces visibility and creates bottlenecks that raise safety concerns and directly impact trade. The condition and facilities is deeply concerning. The room and toilets, a ladies' toilet, just 2 cubicles, 2 sinks, serving around 100 women each weekend is a public toilet. We are poorly maintained. This is beyond unacceptable. It raises serious questions regarding health and safety compliance and represent a breach of basic standards that tenants should have been able to rely upon, particularly given the service charge being paid. There has also been a tribunal finding of racial discrimination against the Westway Trust. This cannot be ignored. It highlights systemic concern that must be addressed transparently and responsibly. As a black woman, as a black businesswoman, I cannot separate my life experience for this broader context. We are calling for an independent audit of service charge. We are calling for full financial transparency, fair and structured payment plan, a secure lease term, proper consultation with tenants, a fair, transparent, and inclusive partnership model, clear oversight and accountability. We also call upon the Council to ensure access to independent traders, specialists, support service like mediation, legal guidance, so that disputes can be resolved constructively before they spiral into crises that damage businesses and community trust. Portobello Green Arcade is not simply a retail location. It's a cultural and entrepreneurial ecosystem. It nurtures creativity, diversity, and grassroots enterprise. We are not asking for ourselves. We are asking for future generations of independent traders who deserve stability, fairness, and opportunity to thrive in this borough. We want partnership. We want transparency. We want subsidiarity. We ask the Council to act with urgency to ensure that small, diverse, independent businesses like mine are protected and not placed in position of vulnerability.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Campbell, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lashimanaya, for coming. I'm afraid on the Portobello Green Arcade and your lease, I'm afraid it's not a matter for the council, but for your landlord, the Westway Trust. Nevertheless, if you get in touch with my office tomorrow, I'm really happy to represent you and to talk to the Westway Trust on your behalf about the problems that you're facing. Yeah, I'm really happy to make representation on that. With regard to your question about sort of dispute resolution between companies and things, that's something we can look at, but at the currently I don't think we offer that service. So I'm afraid get in touch with me tomorrow, and certainly we can represent you with the Westway Trust and the problems that you're having with your lease. Thank you.
Councillor Noor, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you for coming this evening to ask this very important question and raising concerns. I think as a leader of the council mentioned in her speech, the Portobello Arcade landlord is a Westway Trust. I mean, we fully understand that traders, including yourself, are seeking great transparency and how these charges are calculated, where they are and need to be fair and proportionate for the small business, including yours. While the Westway is the independent landlord, I'm confident the local ward councillors will also be in position to request a clarification and encourage dialogue with the traders. As a council, supporting local business is important, and we will continue to press for transparency and fairness. Thank you once again for asking that question.
Thank you very much, Ms. Luchumanaya, for joining us this evening. We now move on to item 6, petitions. Do members have any petitions to present? No? In which case we move on to item 7, statement by the Leader of the Council and response by the Leader of the Opposition Group. Councillor Addenbrooke, do you have a proposal?
Mr Mayor, in accordance with Standing Order 44, I wish to move that Standing Order 32 be suspended this evening to allow Councillors Campbell and Ali up to 10 minutes each for their speeches.
Is that seconded?
I beg to second.
Is that agreed? I now invite the Leader of the Council to address the meeting.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, colleagues and residents here and at home, tonight we're meeting to set the budget for the year ahead, a budget that reflects our priorities, our values and our determination to deliver for every part of our borough. Across local government, the financial climate remains exceptionally challenging. Demand for adult and children's social care continues to rise sharply. Inflationary pressures have driven up contract prices. And national funding reforms, particularly the so-called Fairer Funding Review, have disproportionately impacted inner London boroughs like ours. Let me be clear. The redistribution of funding away from London has meant that councils serving complex, densely populated, high-cost communities have seen resources squeezed year after year. Inner London authorities will lose hundreds of millions of pounds collectively, over 100 million here in Kensington and Chelsea. And despite high levels of deprivation sitting alongside affluence, despite acute housing pressures, and despite some of the highest service delivery costs in the country, we are expected to do more with less. And yet, despite this, Kensington and Chelsea continues to present a balanced and sustainable budget for 26-27, closing a gap of more than £30 million through careful planning and efficiencies, all whilst protecting frontline services. That resilience, Mr Mayor, is not accidental. It is the result of disciplined financial management over many years. We maintain strong reserves. We carry low levels of debt compared with many authorities. We've made the most of private sector funding and unlocked pension funding in innovative ways. And we take a long-term review through a robust medium-term financial strategy. This year's budgets include proposals for a 4.99% council tax increase, including the 2% adult social care precept. That is not a decision that any council takes lightly. But even with this increase, we remain amongst the lowest council tax rates in London, whilst ensuring we can meet growing care demands. And alongside this, the introduction of 100% premium on second homes is expected to raise nearly £8 million annually, funding that will directly support vital services and priorities. Importantly, we are also investing nearly £1 million of additional investment in street cleaning and tackling antisocial behaviour, responding directly to residents' concerns about the cleanliness of our streets and the need to maintain safe, respectful neighbourhoods in this royal borough. Even as we navigate national funding pressures, we are continuing to invest where we can in sensible ways. We have approved a £4.4 million investment programme for the Portobello Road, enhancing safety, improving drainage and flood resilience, upgrading licensing, lighting, widening footways in key areas and increasing greening. Portobello is both a global destination and a vital local high street, and this investment ensures it will remain vibrant and fit for the future. After a sustained campaign, we've won a commitment to deliver step-free access at South Kensington Station, transforming accessibility for residents, hospital patients, families and visitors. This is a long fought-for improvement that demonstrates what both partnership and persistence can achieve. We remain committed to finishing what we started at Lancaster West, including improvements to housing quality, community facilities and the public realm, ensuring long-term stewardship and safe, high-quality homes for residents. We've asked government ministers if they feel the same. And we're creating something entirely new, a new riverside public open space at Lots Road, our first new council-owned open space in decades, with trees, seating, play space and Thames Path access. This project enhances connectivity and creates a whole new public space. All of this sits within a capital programme of more than £200 million over the next 5 years, investing in housing, highways, schools, digital infrastructure and amazing public spaces. And of course, this year also tested us with a serious cyber attack in November. The disruption to systems was significant. Planning platforms, housing systems and payment services were affected. Recovery has required substantial technical work and will need additional investments, which we are planning for. But because we plan prudently, because we maintain reserves and contingency capacity, we have been able to manage that challenge while keeping essential services running. Social care visits continued, waste collection continued, support for vulnerable residents continued. Planning and payments will be back online shortly. We are rebuilding systems stronger and more secure, investing in enhanced cyber resilience and ensuring we learn lessons that protect residents and businesses in the future. This budget, therefore, protects our adult social care spending, our children's services, and everyday services residents rely on. It invests in infrastructure and public realm, and it strengthens resilience, financial, digital, organisational. Nearly 1,000 residents participated in this year's finance and budget consultations. They engaged seriously with the difficult choices involved. But it is worth noting that while we have done the hard work of presenting a balanced, deliverable budget, the opposition on this council have not even brought forward an alternative proposal. A quite incredible position, considering their own government hadn't bothered to do the sums either. Mr. Mayor, setting a budget is not an abstract political exercise. It is a statutory responsibility. It requires credibility, realism, and detailed work. If you aspire to govern, you must be prepared to do that work. Today's budget demonstrates that we are. It reflects careful stewardship in the face of reduced inner London funding. It reflects ambition in projects like Portobello Road, South Kensington Accessibility, and Lots Road Open Space. It reflects resilience in the face of a cyber attack. And it reflects our unwavering commitment to delivering high standards of service for residents. Mr. Mayor, this is a responsible, forward-looking and invest-to-succeed budget, and I look forward to hearing from other colleagues throughout the evening. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor Ali to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I first of all start with corrections the Leader of the Council have missed at the point that we have indeed produced alternative and we've sent it to the officers right on time. So I'm sure the Leader will reflect on her words when she says we have not produced as we are ready to govern after May the 7th. Mr. Mayor, as we enter the holy month of Ramadan, I'm sure you and fellow councillors will join me wishing a peaceful and pleasant Ramadan for thousands of Muslims in Kensington and Chelsea who are fasting the holy month of Ramadan. It was indeed an honor for me, as well as for you, Mr. Mayor, and the Deputy Leader of the Council, this evening to welcome the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Leader of the Church of England, Sarah Mullally, to share iftar with us at Al-Mana Interfaith. And that shows, specifically that shows, Mr. Mayor, breaking a bread together during the holy month of Ramadan is a powerful symbol of interfaith that actually shows unity and defines the best of our borough and also our city and our country. Despite rising Islamophobia and hatred towards Muslims in our country and also in our borough, which has been fueled by narrow-minded politicians and extremists, who have actually their words and what they say can turn into action, as what happened in Manchester Mosque last night. I hope that will never happen in our borough or anywhere else in the country, that we should never ever allow to divide those who are extremists and the right wing and far right to divide us. And I'm really pleased to say that I am proud to be living in a borough and a city and a country where we have far more that unites us than divides us. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, for the last 3 years, when I became the leader of the Labour group, the party opposite, some of the members of the opposite, predicted division and instability. 3 years on, instead we have shown unity, discipline, determination, and hopefully leading my group to the next May as leaders, which will hopefully result in strong, stable, and Labour administration in Kensington and Chelsea for the first time, that puts our residents in the heart of decision making. I understand it's not words they want to hear, but that hopefully will turn into reality. Mr. Mayor, the Leader of the Opposition spoke about the budget, which I again reiterate that she missed the point that we have actually produced, and officers will make that hopefully correction, and I would accept the Leader's apology for that when she decides to apologize. Mr. Mayor, the Labour Alternative Budget 2026-2027 is about fairness, resilience, and investment. Our alternative budget, I give you the privilege of listening, if you don't mind. Thank you. Our alternative budget, Mr. Mayor, sets out the financially balanced plan that protects frontline services, supports vulnerable residents, invests long-term fairness, and prioritizes residents in the north and the south of the borough, as well as the communities affected by Grenfell disaster. We keep the budget balance to make sure that we have adult social care that is fit for purpose, children's family services, public health, as well as community safety. This is a responsible, deliverable plan rooted in fairness, and I hope to say more about it later on in my speech. Mr. Mayor, the Leader of the Council has been painting a rosy picture of the borough's leadership. In fact, her speech this evening reminded me a geological field trip that I once had in Dorset Coast, where I found a mineral called pyrite. It's commonly known as fool's gold. It shines, it looks convincing, but it's not real gold. What residents are being offered by the Conservative administration is actually a political pyrite. Something that looks impressive on the surface, but lacks substance underneath. Let's look at the facts. I'm not going to just say political criticism. Let's look at the facts. This administration claims to be fiscally responsible, yet they have seen major works failure, incomplete refurbishment for costing tens of millions of pounds, projects that initially budgeted for £1 million now focused to be £10 million. They say they are good with the environment, and they show environmental leadership by pledging to electrify our bin lorries, but then again, yet continue to purchase diesel vehicles. Mr. Mayor, how can our residents trust the leadership that says one thing and does another? The Council's failings are not just a political criticism for me or for my Labour group to say, but it's actually formally documented. Mr. Mayor, the C3 judgment of the regulated social housing and that confirmed serious failings on the safety and the quality of our homes in Kensington and Chelsea, it's actually evidence. Given the history of our borough, Grenfell Tower tragedy, such findings are deeply alarming. The Labour group has previously called a stronger government intervention because our residents deserve safe homes, transparent leadership, and meaningful accountability. Mr. Barra, our borough has experienced a national tragedy, so higher standards are not just optional, it's essential for this leadership to provide while they are in position. Mr. Mayor, 80 years on Grenfell, it's unacceptable that many social housing tenants in our borough are still living in non-decent homes. This council must never forget its role for the tragedy. The regulator's findings show serious problems remain unsolved, which I hope the leadership will get on with very soon. Fairer funding and equality in our borough. The fairer funding review has been designed to allocate funding based on need, cost, and the local pressures. I, as a leader of the opposition, and my group have been consistently lobbying the government to support RBKC to make sure that RBKC, the government, does not see us as a wealthy borough capable of just absorbing the cuts despite their mismanagement of money. And also to see us as a Grenfell borough, to see us as one of the most unequal boroughs in the country, if not in the Western world. I thank our local MPs, Joe Powell for Kensington and Bayswater, as well as Chelsea and Fulham, who are supporting our position. Inequality in our borough has worsened since 2021 due to the cost of living crisis and the ongoing housing challenge. ONS data shows that the wards in Goulburn and in Nottingdale remain the most deprived in the country, with a little improvement in the recent years. Behind the borough's wealth lies a deep and persistent inequality which this leadership has failed to deal with. Mr. Mayor, we all want Kensington and Chelsea to be the best place to live, work, and study. However, another fact, our residents have been continually taking complaints to the external bodies to make sure that they be heard, because this council leadership has decided not to hear about them. According to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman's 2023-2024 review, RBKC ranked third highest in London for upheld complaints against the council. Per capita, that is. Mr. Mayor, this is not a badge of honor, is it, that the leader of the council we were talking about? It's actually a warning sign. In 2026, residents will have the choice to continue give the leadership that offers a buy right. As I said, it may be shiny and convincing, but underneath there are absolutely no substance. Or they can give us the choice capable Labour administration that delivers competent service, puts residents at the centre of the decision-making, tackles inequality, and restores trust, which is short in our borough. Mr. Mayor, our borough deserves better, and in 2026, I hope the residents of Kensington and Chelsea will vote for better options. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 8, Order of Business. In accordance with the standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall be as published. Item 9, Reports from the Leadership Team. Councillor Addenbrooke, you have a request under standing orders.
Mr. Mayor, in accordance with Standing Order 44, I wish to move that Standing Order 32 be suspended this evening to allow Councillors Kamali and Ali up to 8 minutes each for their speeches.
Is that seconded?
I beg to second.
Is that agreed? I declare that carried. We now turn to the Revenue Budget, Capital Programme and Council Tax for 2026-27. As in previous years, we will debate the Housing Revenue Account and its business plans separately. There is one amendment. So I'm just going to lay out quickly the order which will take things in. So listen carefully. Councillors Kamali and Ali will make their budget speeches. Next, the amendment will be moved and seconded formally. A general debate on the revenue budget and capital programme and council tax and the amendment will follow that. At the end of the debate, Councillor Lari will sum up on the Labour Group amendment. Councillor Kamali will then make closing remarks before the final recorded votes on the amendment and then the recommendations. We shall be using electronic voting system and members will have 30 seconds to vote. So I hope you caught all that. Right, will the leader formally move the reception of the reports, and will Councillor Kamali please second?
I'd like to move the report, Mr. Mayor.
I beg to second, Mr. Mayor.
I call Councillor Kamali to make his budget speech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start tonight by acknowledging the many long years that Mike Curtis has been here. I believe this is his final full council meeting, so I want all colleagues in this chamber, if they will, to join us in a round of applause for all the work that he's done in setting another balanced budget. Thank you, Mike, and thank you also to the team that have put before us 406 pages this year of detailed, comprehensive, and indeed accurate figures for us here to debate tonight. Mr. Mayor, I stand today to present one of the most difficult but most important budgets that this Council will ever debate. A budget set against the context of a Labour government's vindictive, shambolic fair funding review, a review that leaves RBKC and its residents £108 million worse off through no fault of their own. We had our house in order, Mr. Mayor. We continually set balanced budgets and maintained taxes in the bottom 10% of the country. Our services are some of the very best in the country, leading the way in children's, adults, parks, public realm, to name just a few. We are an example of what local government can achieve. Fantastic services, locally focused, all whilst keeping taxes low. Mr. Mayor, you'd think that Labour might want to learn from us, copy us, help other communities deliver services better. But no, they followed the first rule of socialism: punish success and reward failure. And the weak-willed, innumerate ministers in Number 10 decided the only way to bribe their colleagues around the country was by picking the pocket of inner London and RBKC especially. London, Mr. Mayor, the very heart of the British economy, the city of growth, new development, tourism, investment and opportunity. This was the place they went to asset strip when their socialist ideas failed to generate any new revenue. Mr. Mayor, we often joke in this chamber that the Labour group ought to get on the bus with us. But this Labour government has thrown us, Westminster, H&F, Wandsworth and the city under that very bus. We are therefore not alone in this struggle. But we are, Mr. Mayor, the only council willing to stand up to this bully of a government and shine a light on their underhanded manoeuvring. Let no one leave this chamber tonight not be crystal clear that this was a deliberate attempt by our Labour MPs and their party to bankrupt this authority. Mr. Mayor, it pains them no end that they are unable to win this chamber through democracy. Instead, they wish to eradicate it through centralisation and collectivism. It pains them no end that their idea about how to govern, higher taxes, more welfare, a larger state, have failed so completely. It humiliates them that here in Kensington and Chelsea, we have shown that by keeping money in people's pockets, delivering outstanding services, and helping residents help themselves, we can all succeed. Mr. Mayor, the successes of Kensington and Chelsea highlights the very failures of Labour and the government, and they just can't let that stand. Fortunately, it seems some members sitting opposite have grown wise to the Labour Party and have rightly jumped ship, albeit they've seemingly jumped from the Titanic to the Costa Concordia. Mr. Mayor, whilst the context of tonight's budget is a difficult one, we Conservatives do what we always must, and that is to clear up Labour's mess. And not just because we fund fully twice-weekly bin services, but because we know that sound money and efficient systems are the best way to deliver outstanding services to our residents at the very lowest price. And our record is clear. We are the most efficient council. And that's not us saying it, that's others looking in and recognising that this borough is well run. But meet this new challenge we must. So here tonight we are putting together a raft of savings which help us meet this new budgetary environment. We are raising taxes by only what is necessary, and unlike Wandsworth and Westminster, or indeed the Labour amendment, we are being honest with our residents and not raiding the reserves for a fleeting moment's PR. We know our reserves are there to provide dividends for our residents, and they are not politicians' playthings. Mr. Mayor, tax is only one side of the scale, and tonight we are putting forward £22 million of savings, a record for this organisation. We are deleting posts and roles as we seek to build a leaner and even more efficient council. And whilst debilitating for a time, the recent criminal cyber attack on our West London councils has shown us the potential of rapid transformative change in digital services. We will embrace this digital future, and we will look to leapfrog other authorities as we move to a digital-first approach, whilst maintaining actual human contact for those that require it. But, Mr. Mayor, it's not all doom and gloom. There is money here tonight for a new park in Chelsea Riverside Ward, and I tried to find out, but I'm certain that this is the newest park in London for at least the last 50 years. There is money here to invest in additional street cleansing and maintenance, and we are investing further in our housing stock and safe temporary accommodation provision with an extra £5 million, whilst also putting money aside to support our older residents and building a new care home at the same time. Mr. Mayor, it is at this point in the night that a finance lead would ordinarily pull a rabbit from their hat, and believe me, I have looked. But Mr. Mayor, I have no hat, I have no rabbit. I have just the truth, and I can honestly say that tonight is the first budget in a journey that will see RBKC become finally free of government grants and Labour chaos. A truly sovereign borough, and what could be more fitting for a royal borough than actually being sovereign? And with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I commend this budget to the Chamber tonight. Thank you.
I call Councillor Ali to make his budget speech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At least I appreciate the lead member for economy. Rather than the leader of the council reading about our amendment and alternative, the lead member has acknowledged, which I think the leader, I'm still waiting for her to acknowledge that we actually put forward an alternative. And I will accept that apology once again when the time comes. Mr. Mayor, the alternative budget that we put forward 2026-2027 is about fairness, resilience, and investment in the most needed area in our borough, not to mention North Kensington and the affected community of Grenfell. As well as the Labour's alternative budget 2026-2027 sets out a financially balanced plan that protects the frontline services, supports vulnerable residents, as well as invests in long-term fairness, particularly in the community that I've just mentioned. Our proposal overall budget's balanced, prioritizing three key areas, Mr. Mayor: social care, children's services, as well as public health and community safety. The balanced budget, Mr. Mayor, I understand this has been a very, very difficult year, not just because of the government. Other councils have dealt with the fairer funding, but this Tory leadership has actually been talking about, exactly as I've mentioned in my earlier speech, a political by-right, just to completely talk about something shiny, but underneath no substance. We have looked into the alternative budget and we have managed to save the council for just about £300,000 savings, and to make sure that we do not use the reserves, as has been mentioned in the past. We also invested in £1.5 million for our community, as well as including £13.5 million for capital funding and for the Labour growth step 3. The overall balanced budget, Mr. Mayor, is this approach assures that the long-term stability and protecting essential services from damaging cuts, as the Tories would like to do all the time. Mr. Mayor, the other point that our budget stands out is our amendment is the fairer taxation. And this is the point that's going to haunt them back, because last year we have recommended that they should do a second homes premium and the council tax. But they have decided not to do so, where other councils have done. And what they have done in this time, they have actually targeted the most needy and the most deprived areas and taken away from the council tax support. And this is a political choice that the Conservative administration has done, not just in the North Kensington, where they needed the most of the, but also south of the borough, the Chelsea Riverside and other areas where we have housing estates. They have made deliberate attack on the most vulnerable rather than supporting them, Mr. Mayor. And I think this will show, come what may, that our communities and our residents will have the opportunity to vote them out. Mr. Mayor, not only that the £8 million that the leader and the leader of the council have mentioned earlier, but we added to that £3.6 million, so to make sure that we got up to 95% of the collection. And reason being is, if one can have a second home in our borough, which is, as we all know, one of the richest boroughs, if not the richest in the country, they can actually afford to pay little as they have to maintain. And we may even need the empty homes to make sure that we deal with overcrowding, that the over 3,000 residents that we have in our area. So the fair taxation is the heart of our budget, is our amendment budget, ensuring that the second home owners contribute properly to what they can do, and protecting the frontline services from the cuts that the Tories will love to do. Protecting adult social care is another point. We also have opposed, Mr. Mayor, in our amendment that the Tories wanted to do the social care as well as the weakening the support for vulnerable residents. So we opposed the short-term break, mental health, learning disabilities and services, work reduction, We also, again, we vote and we will vote against it, and we have done in our budget that we do not allow reduced disability pathways, semi-independent housing support, and social care for families. Mr. Mayor, in addition to that, we have proposed that abolishing the home care, as well as daycare, transport, and meals, which costing about £1.7 million. In addition, we have added to £250,000 to support grant for the local voluntary organizations that support providers, which the borough likes to not to mention in their statements, because they want to, again, give us a rosy picture that everything is absolutely fine. Protecting children and young service. Please listen. Thank you. Protecting children and young. Thank you. Protecting children and young people is the core of our message, Mr. Mayor. One is young. It's not that young in the borough, but one is young. But I understand the importance of supporting. Then again, we have actually rejected the savings proposed by the Conservatives to make sure the care leavers accommodation support, the young youth services, family support, children school standards and virtual school support, as well as social care, family and disability pathways, the by-borough family support, and affordable childcare provision in specifically North Kensington. In addition to that, Mr. Mayor, we have managed to build in the balanced budget to really say to our community that we care about you. We care about you. You're young. You want to learn skills, especially life skills. So we put in our budget that the free swimming, free uniform for the children who are in need the most, which is costing £100,000, but also restore the free swimming for the under 16. Imagine someone who was born in this borough and they cannot swim. One is they got the opportunity to go on holiday, or they grow up and they can survive in the water. That is an essential skill that this borough should be thinking about it. So we have introduced it. Again, £2 million for 4 years, Grenfell Scholarship that we have added into our community last year. I'm pleased to say this policy, although the Tories have now decided to put forward on their own, I'm pleased to say we agree in a way that the £2 million will be for the next generation for Grenfell Scholarship. Maybe in another form. We probably will talk about it later on in the motions. Grenfell and North Kensington Community Targeted Action, we make sure that this council remembers what happened to Grenfell community, and re-establishing Grenfell Scrutiny Committee, which obviously they do not want to be held accountable for what happened, and that's why they have made the political decision to get rid of Grenfell Scrutiny Committee, which I, as a member of this council, the first thing I have done was to join Grenfell Scrutiny Committee, but the Tories have decided, because they could not tolerate people who are emotionally damaged, people who've lost their loved ones, and people who've witnessed, including myself, to remind them and to say to them, this happened under your watch. So, Mr. Mayor, continue moving forward. We have a balanced, and again, point number 6, community wealth and economic inclusion. As we know, we have the most unequal borough in the country, if not in the Western world. So we really want to help the communities, £1.5 million for entrepreneurship programs to help create local jobs for local people and to support local communities and to make sure that the inequality is being reduced. Since the Tories have failed to deal with inequality in our borough, we have a plan to deal with it and encourage sustainable economic growth in the long term. Safer and greener borough is also included. And I'm pleased to say is another policy that the Tories have taken from us, which they fell short again. They never come on the bus on time, and bus drivers like me, they never wait for them if they cannot make on time. So they have taken a policy from us, but rather than making the 100,000 we've suggested, they have taken £88,000, and we again ask them to include that to make it £100,000 to get native trees in our borough, and so that we can help the local community. In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, the Labour Alternative Budget 2026-2027, it's actually noted on 3 main principles, as I said in the past: protecting vulnerable people, investing in the north of Kensington and Chelsea, as well as south of the borough, and helping the community, the recovery community, and fairer taxation as they failed to do so. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I commend this amendment to the Tories. For once, they can think of their community. Thank you very much.
We now move to the amendment, which is in the supplementary pack. Will Councillor Ali please formally move, and Councillor Lari please second the amendment?
I beg to move.
I beg to second. We now move on to the budget debate, which is a general discussion about the revenue and capital budget and council tax, all taken together. We've had a number of members express their wish to speak on this item, as you would imagine. We obviously have to complete important business today, so I'd remind members to please be brief. You will technically have the full 5 minutes, but I've agreed with whips. People will try to keep to 3 minutes, and I will tell you when you reach 3 minutes. If a point has already been made, which you were going to speak about, don't feel obliged to repeat the previous point. Feel free to make a shorter speech. With that in mind, as I say, a number of councillors have asked to speak. I turn first to Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to applaud and commend the leader of the Labour Group for the excellent balanced budget proposals. While there are difficult choices to be made all round, the Labour Group proposals demonstrate how many of the budget saving items appear to be a political choice and too often a false economy that will lead to further costs either to the Council or to our residents. I've said it before and I'll say it again. For too long, this Council has balanced its budget, both financial and reputational, on the back of personal costs to our most vulnerable residents, whether through reduction or diminishment of services or through uncompensated detrimental impacts on them of council decision-making. In the context of the programme of change at the council, this needs to stop. Balancing the books on other people's misery and life chances is not acceptable. In the light of the straitened circumstances which we as a council find ourselves, after years of one of the wealthiest boroughs in London having its low council tax effectively subsidised by the nation's taxpayers, that's other people's money, as you would call it, I wish to speak about false economies and the fearsome waste of public money. I'm not going to talk about the £57 billion of public money lost to COVID fraud under a Conservative government, no. I'm talking about this Conservative council, whose self-congratulatory PR, silly political posturing, and aggressive contempt for its residents, their representatives, and even for democracy itself, continues to be wholly in keeping with the culture that was so dreadfully exposed in 2017 and documented at the Grenfell Tower inquiry. On the subject of waste, where shall I begin? Well, there's Maxilla City, Bays 17 to 19, over the last 8 years, a cost of over £1 million of public money, including the cost of rendering it unusable for reasons that remain unclear. Or there's the fiasco of Pembroke Road, a cost of over £10 million of public money for a job that would have cost £1 million had timely action been taken. That is more than the then Conservative Westminster Council wasted on the Marble Arch Mound. Or there's Silchester Arches, 11 flats costing over £1.1 million apiece to build, well over their sale value. I could go on with some other examples, but I don't want to run out of time. What I'm asking is, can this leadership team really say they are delivering value for money? I will set aside the moment, the cost to our council taxpayers arising from the decisions that this council made that led to the catastrophe of Grenfell. Over 400 million. Ordinarily, I would be too polite to mention it. But let's not mislead the public that this leadership team do not have feet of clay like everyone else. You know it, the public knows it. So let's get real. I believe that children are our future, and yet this council is choosing to find huge savings from children and family services. Is this because that directorate is a particular source of waste? Or will these savings have detrimental impacts on our borough's children, including those with disabilities or special needs? Children who don't yet vote and can't fight back. As this budget will no doubt be nodded through tonight, with the customary impunity, I wish to draw your attention to a number of proposals in the alternative budget, which a kinder, cleaner, greener, fairer council should surely wish to explore and implement. The proposals pertaining to city living, local life and NSIL are no-cost proposals which would further the council's stated commitment to becoming a fairer council. I hope that these will be given serious consideration by the relevant lead members and brought to fruition. I'm going to close it here because I see the time is running out. There are choices to be made, difficult ones, yes, but we should always be putting the interests of our residents first before politics, before ego, before profit. That is how we overcome and move forward from the disastrous recent history in whose shameful shadow we so far remain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lindsay.
May I, as a Conservative, please congratulate the Labour government on their financial achievements. High debt, a very large structural trade deficit, unaffordable pay sector rises in the public sector, and high taxes encouraging wealth creators to leave the country. What may come next? Hopefully not a sterling and gilts crisis, but it is this economic gap background, courtesy of Rachel and Keir's no plan for growth, that explains in large measure why this council's budget is quite so tight. In increasingly fraught economic times, we are going to have to look continuously at our payroll, which accounts for about 55% of our total costs. I don't know what the right amounts are for salaries and indeed staff numbers, but they will need ever closer attention in the future. Related, we, indeed the whole public sector, need to look at the sustainability of pensions. Having a good pension is a good thing. We would all want it for ourselves and hopefully others. Local government's current index-linked defined benefits scheme is funded, unlike most public sector pensions. But at what age should pensions be payable? What are the right levels of employer and employee contributions? If the stock market crashes, how much should and would a shortfall be covered by an increase in council tax, and how much might pensioners have to share some of the hardship? I don't know the answers, but difficult questions must be asked. For pensions to be truly affordable, my guess is that most of us will need to work for rather longer than currently and receive a lower projected pension. As work becomes more demanding, how do we restructure working patterns, including organisational pyramids, so that those with high-paying and important jobs in their 40s and 50s take a job that is currently below their grade in their later work years? If we want pay rises and good pensions, we need high levels of productivity. Paul Krugman, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, said productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it's almost everything. Public sector productivity remains below pre-pandemic levels. As one who believes in local government, I express acute concern for the public finances and for the sake of our residents that much of the public sector has received pay rises unmatched by productivity increases. And I conclude with Scottish Enlightenment era philosopher Alexander Fraser Tytler,
3 minutes,
who wrote, "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy." Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick point of order under Standing Order 27. We agreed at the Whips meeting that speeches should be obviously constrained, but we respect members' choice to use their 5 minutes. But under Standing Order 27, members should speak strictly on the question under debate and not indulge in irrelevance.
Thank you,
unfortunately, Councillor Lindsay's speech was not relevant to the budget. It's not got nothing to do with pensions or government policy.
Councillor,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for raising that. I will be the judge of what's relevant or not. Councillor Dencode.
Yeah, I really thought we were talking about the budget tonight as well. Thank you, Sina. Very bizarre. Mr Mayor, I've been through the Council's budget proposals and the Labour Group amendment in detail, and where the Council budget has many of the usual flaws, the Labour Group, while confident in revenue counter-proposals, lacks ambition with the capital budget. So yes, we do need to hand over curatorship of our loss-making but rather lovely museums, Leighton House and 18 Stafford Terrace, to more experienced custodians. One of my proposals many years ago, thank you for the legacy there. And I welcome the proposed re-establishment of the Grenfell Recovery Scrutiny Committee, of course I do, and the reallocation of funds for City Living and ENSIL to areas of actual need. We still have the shame of the most multi-deprived ward in London. However many times Councillor Kamali denies it, the Office of National Statistics is very sure. Yes, of course, I support funding step-free access at Ladbroke Grove and South Kensington, which I've been waiting for since my children were in buggies and hope to see before my knees give out. I see nothing in either budget to increase our pitiful recycling rates, nor to improve enforcement for residents suffering antisocial behaviour and noise, both of which we saw in the press today we are notably awful at. As always, the Council has plenty of core voter-pleasing ideas of how to spend their parking reserve. This is infuriating. I've repeated so many times where and how this should be spent on projects other than the endlessly, supposedly amazing spaces beloved of Councillor Thelicides. The December version of the budget was proposing nearly £20 million of the Council slush fund spent on these frivolities, and this version is not better but less bad, something like 12 million, I think. The rest, of course, removed from the pipeline to be replaced when we're not looking. However, the area I would most like to focus on, which has been touched on tonight, is the ongoing failure after 8.5 years of the Council's programme to support our communities via the Grenfell legacy projects that relate to community spaces. The ongoing disaster of the future of Bays 17 to 19 Maxilla Walk, Maxilla City, where I think it's nearly £2 million now, has been spent on achieving precisely nothing but destroying a functioning community-led project, is utterly shameful. It is not good enough to tell one campaign group one thing, keep others in the dark, tell ward councillors nothing at all until they demand answers, shuffle money around as if it isn't our money, which it is, and dissemble over the future of Canalside House and the voluntary organisations our communities rely upon. Neither is it good enough to juggle funds and commitments and attempt to confuse those to whom the Council is accountable. And this is hugely important in relation to the future of the Society and the Adult Social Care Day Centre. Unless a strategic plan for the future of council property assets is agreed by those it affects, and that's us, and shared publicly and honestly, which it hasn't been, we are sadly back to the days of the dodgy deals we saw in 2015 and 2016 in relation to Warrington College, North Kent Library, Isaac Newton Centre, etc., where a mysterious property board agreed plans behind closed doors and the chief executive of the time refused to share them. If there is no strategic plan, which I find hard to believe, why isn't there? For many in North Kensington still struggling with day-to-day life, the continued presence and offer of sustainable community provision is a lifeline. The fact that the Grenfell Council still doesn't understand this, but would rather spend £10 million of our money on frivolities, tells us everything we need to know. Thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Mayor. Adult social care is one of the most complex responsibilities any council carries. It is demand-led, needs are rising, and the national funding picture remains uncertain. Yet in RBKC, we are balancing the budget whilst continuing to deliver an outstanding service, as confirmed by our independent CQC inspection this year. And what truly makes the difference in this borough is our commitment to prevention. Because the best care is often the care that prevents crisis in the first place. Our focus is clear: support residents remain independent, safe and connected to their communities with dignity and with choice. And the national data shows that this approach works. The latest adult social care outcomes framework figures show that the admissions to residential or nursing care per 100,000 adults are 282 in RBKC. That compares to 433 across London and 593 nationally. And that difference is not by accidental. It reflects a conscious decision to invest in prevention. So what does this actually mean in practice? It means strong re-ablement, helping people regain their confidence after illness. It means practical support, adaptations, equipment, telecare, so residents can stay safe at home. It means direct payments that give people real choice and control over their care. And it means empowering people and creating more opportunities for adults and learning disabilities to secure paid employment and live more independently. And the results are clear. 14% of adults with learning disabilities in RBKC are in paid employment. Across London and England, it's just 5%. 84% are living in their own homes or with family, again higher than both London and national averages. That is what sustainable adult social care looks like. And this is why RBKC is one of the few councils nationally delivering a balanced budget in this climate without closing services, without cutting daycare centres, and without compromising care quality. And we are also investing in the future, expanding an in-borough provision so residents can remain independent and close to the people and communities that matter to them. This is what responsible local government looks like: high standards, strong safeguarding, prevention before crisis, and careful stewardship of public money. None of this happens without the officers and senior leaders who deliver it. Their expertise, discipline, and commitment to residents are the foundation of what we have achieved. RBKC has shown that you do not have to choose between quality and sustainability. You can deliver both, as confirmed by the CQC last year. And that is something I really hope that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. It's understood that significant savings must be made to balance the budget, driven by pressures such as rising temporary accommodation and the fairer funding formula. But this is common to other London boroughs. So, alongside savings, it's important that there is staff capacity to ensure that we're not in a position that we save with one hand and lose and waste with the other. The budget proposals submitted to committees lack sufficient detail and transparency for full scrutiny. So we'll concentrate on key issues and recommendations. Staff capacity and service quality. Savings must not undermine service delivery. Redundancies and restructuring have reduced capacity, for example, in housing, being particularly affected. The cyber attack backlog. Once systems are restored, there'll be over 1,000 planning applications and housing-related inquiries, for example. What are the cost implications if temporary staffing is considered? Levels of council tax arrears and business rates recovery seem to be unclear. With an ageing population, the budget should explain real-world effects of the cuts. On the high street, al fresco trading boosts revenue, and for businesses benefiting should also take social responsibility. Parking bay suspension fees are modest in comparison to their gains. E-bike fines. Which budget will the fines be allocated to, and what is the recovery rate on the fines? So, allocation of resources, proposal for extra street cleaning, waste and cycle crews, and Cremorne Wharf Park maintenance lack transparent allocation criteria, ward-level distribution, and performance metrics. Refurbishment, acquisition, and new build. Large projects have faced cost overruns and delays. The Council should review project management capacity to avoid financial loss or returned grants or overspend. Cuts to council tax reduction schemes. disproportionately harm low-income residents due to high local living costs and concentrated need. The Council appears to prioritise services reserves over low-income households, unlike some other boroughs. Confidence in saving and growth. There needs to be more clarity on the deliverability of savings and income assumptions, adequacy of growth allocations for demographic pressures, and long-term sustainability of adult social care. There are indeed pressures on adult social care, but the demand grew by 12% in 2024-25, with care packages cost projected to increase by 6 million year on year. There needs to be clarification of the proposed 1.502 million growth allocation, demographic forecasts, and measures preventative and reablement to control long-term demand and how effectiveness will be tracked. Proposed allocations of up to 3.1 million from public health risks, cutting prevention and community programs, strategic investment may save costs long-term and support vulnerable communities. Recommendations. We'd like to see a review of reinstating a day centre for older residents in the centre and the south of the borough, rather than having to go to the north to get as many services. To explore funding with the Social Investment Property Capital Team for a police hub to address antisocial behaviour and enforce PSBOs in Earls Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Siren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've already heard about the complex responsibilities the Council carries in adult social care and the many intense pressures on our budget. The Scrutiny Committee has looked carefully at how the department can deliver the best possible service to our residents. One area we've looked at is staff development, and this budget delivers greater efficiency by skilling up our staff, because we know that with more training and support they can do more. I'm proud to stand here today and speak about the adult social care workforce and how they can help the Council to deliver efficient and outstanding services. And it's not just me saying this. The CQC said this too and recognises that we have a stable and highly motivated workforce. Time and again, staff have told us that this local authority is a genuinely good place to work, a place where they feel respected, supported and truly valued. 82% of our staff in adult social care said they were proud to work for this council, and this is an increase of 11% on last year. As a result, RBKC has the lowest turnover rate in inner London at 12.5% versus a London average of 25%. A stable and happy workforce is important because RBKC is able to spend less than a few £100,000 on adult social care agency staff, while neighbouring boroughs are spending millions. Therefore, we can invest in our people rather than a transient staff who are gone tomorrow. The department has come up with innovative training ideas like providing apprenticeships for our staff, some of whom are residents, and helping them gain qualifications. We train university students and are then able to recruit and retain them. RBKC is recognised as a partner of choice for social work students. We've also committed to savings in this budget by investing in systems which secure NHS continuing healthcare funding. This helps us make sure that our vulnerable residents receive all the funding support they're entitled to. The department has an expert, dedicated team who have good understanding of the CHC eligibility criteria. The Council can therefore make savings because not only do we not need to fund this care, but our residents also benefit because they don't lose their additional benefits. Mr. Mayor, this is another testament to the Adult Social Care Learning and Development Programme, which ensures staff have the right skills and knowledge to not only deliver care, but to do this in a way that secures value for money. Mr. Mayor, our staff are our greatest asset. We are lucky to have happy, consistent staff who are highly qualified, and this saves us a lot of money in the long run. Mr. Mayor, thank you, and I'm pleased to support this budget.
Councillor Thaxter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many minutes do I have, Mr. Mayor? Five.
You
Okay,
have
thank
5,
you.
but if you're able to keep it to 3, it'd be much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adult and social care is one of our most important services in the council. Our budget, our Labour budget, reflects North Kensington values and our priorities. In the light of inflation and sustained pressures in the system, we must acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. Some cuts do need to be made. The reasonable question is, before us, is whether we make savings and how do we make them in principle basis. Our expectation must be clear. We must set out safe principles to guide our cuts so that we can clearly explain, not just set out random group questions that appear optimistic and vague. Residents deserve coherence, transparency, and fairness in our decision making. First, we should avoid impact on residents wherever possible. The clear intention should be to reframe services where services cannot be reframed. The rationale must be explicit, evidence-based, and honestly communicated. People should understand not only what is changing and why. We should also focus on saving on underutilized infrastructure, explaining staffing model and efficient system. We should interrogate estate strategies, manage layers, duplications across departments, and legacy processes before we remove frontline services. Structures inefficiency must be addressed before community needs is compromised. And to let us be honest, the council has also demonstrated, the council has not always demonstrated strong financial discipline. We have been very good at wasting money. Maxilla, that millions of pounds was waiting, yet still we still have no building and we don't know any plans. When you sum up all this loss through weak insight or flawed planning, it has become far harder to justify cuts that affects essential services before asking residents to accept reductions. We must show that we have tightened governance, strengthened scrutiny, and eliminated avoidance waste. We should avoid impacts where there is high evidence of need or vulnerability. Supporting survivors or domestic violence, safeguarding mental health and other areas should be protected. From the public health and social care perspective, withdrawing support for high-risk populations do not create safe. It displaces costs into crisis response, acute service, and long-term harm. First, we should consider greater use of the voluntary sector and collaborate. And the reason for this is because voluntary sectors often operate with lower overheads in staffing and premises. They are embedded in the community, aware of what people need, and they're geographically placed, well placed, where demands are greatest. Strategically, partnership could allow us to maintain outcomes while reducing expenditure, meaning fewer services would need to be cut. And finally, we must scrutinize the narrative using to justify savings. Some of the rationale present here is not sound. For example, suggesting that a reduced service will somehow deliver the right care in the right space to the right people demand explanation. How will this work? What are the reduced resources? What is the operational model? What is the evidence base? And critically, how does such language make residents feel about the care they are receiving now? If we are to make difficult decisions, then they must be disciplined by principles, grounded in evidence, and matched by demonstrable improvements in financial management. That is how we protect public trust while safeguarding the most vulnerable in our communities. Yeah, Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well
Councillor Dorene.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Pleased to speak in support of this budget. I first want to acknowledge the work undertaken by the lead member and his officers. I think balancing the books in the present climate is clearly not for the faint-hearted, and I know how hard he has worked on this, and I thank him for his time explaining some of the details to me. I think we have a budget that protects the core services that residents want and maintains financial stability in the difficult circumstances into which we have been forced. Now, to deal with this, we are again having to ask most residents to pay more. Council tax, though still staying low in London-wide terms, is increasing. And for the first time, we are having to introduce this second homes premium. Now, I hope the lead member agrees, but I certainly do not regard this second homes premium that we are introducing as any kind of ideological choice or a political statement. It is a blunt instrument towards which we have been driven to using in order to plug unfair gaps created by the Labour government's so-called fairer funding formula. How reasonable is it, Mr. Mayor, of this government to expect us to keep raising taxes year after year or introduce yet more new and unfair taxes on yet more groups across society? And people across income scales are already paying enough. And of course, Kensington and Chelsea has always been a net contributor to the nation. Again, I understand the time constraints that we have been put under, and our immediate priority has to be to protect services. I do appreciate that. And I think in the meantime, and certainly in the longer term, all we need to do is redouble our efforts to get more efficiencies, more reforms, more innovation, more smarter delivery, so increasing the burden on our residents in the future always remains a last resort and never a first response. Thank you.
Councillor Verboven. No. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and it's an honour to follow Councillor Dorene, who's made some points that I'd very much like to associate myself with in a moment, which will be to congratulate the lead member and his officers on achieving a balanced budget in virtually impossible conditions this year. I mean, it's not a budget that I'm going to vote for tonight with deep joy. Nobody on this side likes to raise taxes. A maximum council tax rise, that's not something we want to do. I don't want to reduce the generosity of the council tax reduction scheme, which up till now has been the most generous in the country, more generous than anything that any Labour council has had. And I don't want to introduce the second homes tax either. The party opposite has been calling for the second homes tax eagerly since the concept was invented. We're only introducing it as a last resort because we have to, because the so-called fairer funding formula, it's like having our legs cut off at the knees, and we've had to make some very difficult decisions. As the leader said in her speech, this is a responsible budget, and that's the spirit in which I shall be voting for it tonight, not with any joy. Despite that, I will welcome one angle of it. Despite that very difficult background, the extra investment in the Cleanest Streets initiative, the extra £705 million, that is squarely in line with residents' priorities from north to south of the borough. Everybody wants clean streets. Everybody wants their bins collected, regardless of what sort of housing tenure you live in. The Clear All service has been a magnificent success in the streets that it's been adopted in. It has made a material difference, and I'm really pleased that that will be extended as a result of this investment into extra streets. It's already made a difference in Courtfield Road and Stanhope Gardens, where it's been introduced since this investment came in. So I thank the leadership for introducing that. But faced with this budget, we do have an alternative. We do have an option to vote for the shadow budget tonight, so I ought to turn my attention to this fantasy world. It is, in fact, based on wishful thinking and assumption. Indeed, they use the assumption that their number one is assume second homes premium is in line with the previous year's assumptions. Well, They say £3.5 million extra. Well, I think that's a very dangerous assumption. I mean, I'm going to check my National Lottery numbers in about 45 minutes' time, and that would be very nice if I win. But I haven't based my entire personal financial plan on winning the National Lottery. And that is effectively what this is. This is making an assumption.
3 minutes.
About, oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got plenty more to say, I apologise. I've only just started with the shadow budget here. So making an assumption that you're going to raise more than is prudent, that is a very, really dangerous thing to be doing. Number two, I won't do all of them, but number two, reduce the corporate contingency budget. Now, members opposite might have forgotten that we had a cyber attack on the council on the 24th of November. It's had a very, very serious impact on the council, and that is exactly the kind of thing that we have a contingency budget for. So we've just had a living example of why you need one. We don't reduce it. That's not a prudent thing to do. We've got the old chestnut of handing over the museums. Actually, there's quite a good phrase in here. They've expanded on what they say here compared to previous years. So, bottom line, the property should be financially self-supporting. Well, that's right. That's obviously taken from the National Trust guidelines. So, if they're saying that they're making a £400,000 loss, I don't know if that's true, and I don't trust their figures. But if they... Oh, Councillor Dentcote's heckling. I thought she was supposed to be listening in respectful silence to my speech, as I'm going to listen to hers. So let me just go back into the £400,000 loss that they say it's made. So if the property should be financially supporting, we'd have to hand them over with a sufficient dowry to make them self-sufficient. So there's no actual saving at all from doing that. And we go on to all the other... There's a really serious logic fail, which I'll attempt to explain here, which that they're saying that they don't want to make any of these efficiencies, which obviously we wouldn't want to make them either, but we're forced into 22 million.
You have to conclude, Councillor.
Efficiencies. So it's a shame I can't go on with more, but that's a failure. I won't vote for their shadow budget, but I will vote for ours. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nur.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to begin by thanking the officers who worked on the budget and our Labour team who really put a lot of efforts in producing the alternative budget. We all recognize the difficult decision required to getting a balanced budget and the seriousness of pressure before us. Having said that, it is really hard to stand here and see a saving made on our school standards, virtual school, youth services, and pathway for children with disabilities. I just want to pay special attention, Mr. Mayor. The proposal to transfer early years provision from our maintained nurseries into primary school setting as a cost-saving measure. Our early years service play a unique and critical role in supporting children at the very beginning of their lives. They provide specialist environment designed specifically for the early development with a trained staff who understand the complexity, emotional, social development needs for every young child. Mr. Mayor, nurseries affected in this budget serve communities that have experienced exceptional hardship in recent years, including many families who continue to deal with the long-term impact of Grenfell, COVID, and the ongoing economic pressures. In this context, stability and continuity of trusted early years provision is especially very important. While our primary schools play a vital role valued in supporting our children, there are real risks at this change, although well-intentioned and financial measures in mind. It is important to recognize that investment in early years delivers long-term benefits, not only for individual children and families, but also for wider system. Supporting early years helps reduce pressures on social care, improve educational outcomes, strengthen communities over time. Mr. Mayor, we would like to welcome the opportunity to work constructively with the administration, council, senior officers to explore alternative approaches that protect early years provision while addressing the council's financial challenges. Our shared goal must be to ensure every child in our borough has the strongest possible start in their life. Thank you very much.
Councillor Thalasitis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I spoke last year in my budget speech about the growing financial pressures that we're facing and that more certainty and more time was needed to plan, and that would be just as helpful as more money. And despite our pleas to government, we've actually had an even later settlement this year, and despite the government's New Year's resolution to deliver fair funding, we've been dealt one of the toughest settlements in the country. Fair funding hasn't been remotely fair to Kensington and Chelsea. We got less certainty, we got less time to prepare, but a silver lining is that we got 108 million reasons for residents to vote Conservative on the 7th of May. Despite this backdrop, the budget before us is exactly what a responsible council should produce. Balanced, robust, and laser-focused on the things that residents feel when they step out of their front door. So there are still, although there are these pressures, lots of good things happening across Kensington and Chelsea. The investment in clean streets has already been highlighted, which will include new electric buggy in Earls Court, a new electric buggy in Pembridge and Notting Hill Gate in that area. We've got time banding that's just come in for commercial waste in Norland Ward, new street sweepers in Chelsea Riverside, and amazing spaces, which Councillor Dencode loves, in Kensington Park Road, Gloucester Road, Stratford Road, and more. So we are still totally focused on residents' priorities and on making the best of what this Labour government has given us in the funding settlement. And at the same time, we're taking action about the things residents really care about. For example, continuing to seize electric bikes on pavements. We've seized nearly 1,500 so far. The Labour amendment, I'm afraid, is much the same old. They still want to sell Leighton House. They probably would like to close Opera Holland Park, and I doubt they even know where the Design Museum is. But I was left asking, why does Labour hate Holland? Because residents are starting to notice. I've been out in Woodsford Square today, Oakwood Court yesterday, Abbotsbury Close the day before, and residents really are starting to notice, and it's a question that Labour will have to find a better answer to in the next couple of months. Before I close, Mr. Mayor, mindful that I only have a few seconds left before the 3-minute guillotine that we've got, I wanted to congratulate the lead member for Finance on producing this budget, which takes the difficult decisions necessary to keep our borough in a sure footing over the coming year.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bakhtiar? No. Okay. Councillor Wheel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first want to start by welcoming a budget which is conservative to its core, managing our activities within our means, but with aspiration and vision. It's a great achievement by the lead member and a very impressive swan song by our outgoing executive director. And it's a budget that will allow us to keep doing those things which really matter to us, being excellent in adult social care and children's services. But it's against a backdrop of a rotten government with insanely rotating policies who are consigning a generation of young people, as far as the figures are suggesting, to unemployment. And that's a context which has ramifications for our own budgets in future. And so I want to stop and have a look at paragraph 14 makes us look forward to the future of what's coming down the road within this context. And I think that constitutes a wake-up call for scrutiny across this council, and I wanted to draw everyone's attention to that. As a council, we're going to have to change how we do things and what we do and how expansively. We need to take advantage. We need to use the cyber attack to our advantage, to leapfrog technology. We need to make changes in all sorts of ways. And we need to keep looking at what we do constantly from different angles and using data to guide what we do and how we do it better. But we have to do that scrutiny across both sides of this chamber, and we have to do it really seriously in order to support the executive and to challenge the executive to make those future budgets make sense. And I just have to say that the Labour budget is an exercise in explaining just where scrutiny goes wrong. I sat in all of the meetings and I don't remember any of these. It's basically painting by numbers, this budget. They're saying any sort of saving that we suggest, they say, well, it might not work. But actually, none of that was really challenged in any scrutiny committee. And why not? Because actually, I'd have relished taking on those comments and pushing the lead member to justify them. And we've talked a lot about, we've concentrated on what savings are achieved and not achieved and how to identify them. And yet, the Labour group on all of the scrutiny committees, I mean, I may be wrong on 1 or 2 cases, but in general, they never pushed it. So to put all of that in an alternative budget without having actually really challenged it when you had the opportunity to do so is really very disappointing.
Councillor Jedditt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sadly, after 14 years of Tory-managed decline in the line of formula offered by Rishi Sunak, taking from the poor, giving to the rich, an offer of 5 million offered to Holland Park comes to mind here, and selling Canal Way without our knowledge of public consultation needs to be mentioned because we don't know what happened with the money. And one was sold in the first place, was a developer taking over. After 14 years of the Tory, the Labour came to power and the false pretenses of promise changed. But where is that promise change? The current national government starved this council of a very vital fund, supporting Westminster Council, but discriminating against us by cutting those funds so vital for us drastically and pushing this council into looking for funds from the very poor residents. That's the not way of dealing with the local government or national. Understanding is residents have no money, and now they will be squeezed for even more thanks to Labour. Looking further, there was a great opportunity for this Labour group to provide Ladbroke Grove with step-free access by securing 7.5 million towards the project. What Labour has done for those who voted for them and those who are very, very vulnerable, because some of my casework, I have residents on a wheelchair, and obviously they struggle, and going to different hospitals, different parts of London, it's a struggle for them, and obviously they voted for Labour and they hope for something positive. So what Labour done for them, they shifted 12 million from the council money to South Kensington, now going to the social media boasting how wonderful idea it was, but actually with all my respect for the Tories, you came with this petition 2022 and the felicity that you put 7.5 million on the table for each, for Ladbroke Grove and for the South Kensington. It's shameful for Labour not to follow that example and take credit for something which we haven't done. You never petitioned for anything good in South Kensington. You just took the back seat and enjoyed your councillor allowance, pretending that you are literally fighting for the good of the residents. Going further, I see it as a teamwork against the poor by Labour and Tories alike. And I am sure that the message Labour party will leave after the lost local election, because I am sure the general election will be lost. Seeing how things are progressing now, the question is who is going to take place, who is going to win the residents' and voters' trust because 14 years of you, and now another years of you by some resident called the Blue Labour, doesn't really help anybody. So I am sure that after last election, the message will be left for next government. I'm sorry, there is no money. Thank you.
Councillor Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and be brief, and I'd just really like to say three things. Firstly, and really the most importantly, to thank both Councillor Kamali and Wright, but obviously all the officers, including Mike Curtis, for the enormous amount of work that goes into this budget. I don't think any of us really understand how much work it involves, and so really to thank them and for once again helping us deliver a balanced budget at a time when so many other councils cannot do that. So it really is something to be proud of. The second thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to thank Councillor Dent Code for mentioning the asset strategy that we have started work on, the property asset strategy. She's quite right that we need to consult and talk to everyone about this, and that's why we've already done our first round with the VCS property consultation we've done. But I'm not satisfied that we've had enough responses. So I've asked officers to go around and talk to everyone again and write to people again, because she's quite right. It's important we get as much feedback on that as we can, and that will feed into the strategy that will be delivered later this year, I hope. And then the third thing I wanted to say, because it is, when you've been a councillor a while, these budget nights do have a slight familiarity. And it's always good to see the same old canards come around every year. And I won't embarrass anyone by mentioning my particular favourites. But I hope everyone here will indulge me if I end some of my comments by delivering my own. And the reason I'm going to say this, even though I'm slightly in jest, is I've mentioned the asset strategy and all the work that we're doing. There are going to be very, very tough choices ahead for this council, and that is because the Labour government have absolutely decimated our budget, and that is going to be tough for everyone, and we will do our best to protect the most vulnerable, as we always have in this borough. And that's why we have outstanding adult social care and family children services. But make no mistake, what is coming to us has been imposed on us by a Labour government. And so I will leave with my favourite canard that the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. Yeah.
Councillor Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure how I can top that from Council. I think we all agree on this side of the chamber those words still ring true today than they always have. So across the country, Mr. Mayor, adult social care is facing serious challenges, shrinking budgets and growing demand, especially here in RBKC. And yet, once again, I'm really pleased to say, as everyone's said tonight, we are delivering our balanced budget while all keeping our services at ASC outstanding. I know I'm a broken record on that, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's something we really need to harp on about. I'm really proud, as Councillor Simon has said, of our highly motivated, deeply dedicated workforce whose ambition shines through every single day. And I really encourage any member here to visit adult social care officers either out on the front line or here upstairs on level 2. We may be a small borough, but we make a huge impact, not just in London, but across the country. And I'm incredibly proud to be the lead member of this department and present our part of the budget tonight. Delivering ASC is really complex, dealing with multiple stakeholders and multiple pieces of legislation. And that, our daily pressures can shift in an instant. In RBKC, we're navigating these challenges, from recruitment pressures to NHS system demands. We are, as the CQC said, simply the best. And Tina Turner also said that as well, Mr. Mayor, and I think we should have that as our theme song for ASC, because they rated RBKC outstanding. We are the only borough in the entire United Kingdom, Mr. Mayor, to receive outstanding specifically for safeguarding. So While we may be the top authority, Mr. Mayor, the CEQC said it loud and clear. They saw the joy our staff bring to their roles and to our residents, and they saw how valued they feel and how that translates directly into better support for our residents. My colleagues have already raised the devastating impact of the unfair funding formula that will have on our residents. And yet, despite those pressures, we have managed to save, Mr. Mayor, almost £4 million across ASC in the last 2 years, and that has not impacted our frontline services, as the CQC has said. So again, we managed to find priorities and efficiencies where we can. But we're not stopping there. There is some good news, Mr. Mayor, amongst all this disastrous for this fair funding formula. We're committing £15 million to adult social care accommodation in the next few years, because delivering proactively on this agenda means strengthening people's connection to their family and their community, and helping us demand pressures sustainably. We are now investing in the future. I thought I'd best divert attention, Mr. Mayor, to some of Labour's amendments, which I just wanted to highlight, as Councillor Hammond so gracefully did earlier. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of the financial position that we have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Take the proposal to increase grant support for VCS organisations. We invested £10 million to the health promoting services and the VCS because we recognise that the voluntary sector's value, especially in prevention and helping people independently. We've driven that this year, Mr. Mayor, and that's proving results right on the front line. We believe in building for our residents and supporting our residents, and this is what the budget delivers. Efficiency where appropriate, outstanding services where it matters, and nationally excellent services at its core. Our budget is responsible, it's ambitious, and puts their residents, and most importantly, Mr. Mayor, their dignity first. Thank you.
Councillor Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One moment, please. Okay. Mr. Mayor, budgets are moral documents as well as financial ones. They show not only what we can afford, but what we value, who we protect when choices become difficult. This is very much a Conservative budget, presented as prudent, responsible, necessary, but responsibility is not measured only by balancing columns, it's measured by who carries the risk when pressures rise. Here in the borough, the consequences are already visible in this council's own figures. Projected 101 million budget gap, 21 million identified in savings, rising demand for homelessness support, adult social care and children's services, reduced financial support for low-income residents through changes to council tax support. These aren't technical adjustments. These are decisions about whose security comes first. We're told that this is unavoidable. National constraint leaves no room for maneuver. But even under constraint, priorities are political. This administration decides how risk is distributed. It decides where restraint falls, and it decides whose insecurity is manageable. In this budget, the pressure continues to tilt downwards. We should be honest about the longer story. For half a century, this borough has operated within a clear economic philosophy. Growth as the primary engine. Remind anyone of anyone else? Markets as the organizing force. Redistribution as a secondary correction. Call it neoliberalism, call it market-first government, call it Thatcherism. That label matters less than the outcome. Over that period, this borough has become wealthier and more unequal at the same time. If growth alone were sufficient, we would not see entrenched deprivation sitting beside extraordinary affluence. We would not see residents struggling with unaffordable rent, with care, with their own stability in one of the richest local authorities in Europe. And it's not an accident. It's the predictable result of a model that assumes prosperity will trickle outward if left undisturbed. Now, some in this chamber may offer variations on that model. A levy here, a scholarship there, an entrepreneurship scheme to help the most talented, those who are best at school, to rise up above the rest.
3 minutes.
Well, I welcome taxing empty property, but selective uplift is not structural protection. Helping a few navigate the system more successfully does not alter the underlying distribution of security within it. And if growth remains the overriding priority, if development is justified in its name, even when communities object, and they do, then inequality is still being managed, not confronted. But tonight we are voting on a Conservative budget, and this budget continues that same logic. Safeguard financial indicators first, ask those with the least resilience to adjust. In a borough of immense wealth. If 50 years of market-led growth have not delivered security for all our residents, we should at least have the honesty to question whether more of the same will. Residents do not live inside economic models, though. They live with unaffordable rent, with care needs, with rising costs, with fragile security. I see that reality, as many on this side of the chamber do, week after week, with our casework, from residents trying to hold things together at the margins. They're not asking for growth, they're asking for stability. There is always a choice about priority, a choice about whether we draw first on the strength of this borough or on the resilience of its poorest residents. The administration has made its choice, and tonight, all of us will make ours. Thank you.
Councillor Folkes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been another incredible year in children's services. Ofsted outstanding for the third time running. Hey. But before I talk about how we will continue to deliver our outstanding services, which with less funding, I want to say to each and every member of my Family and Children's Services team, thank you, because you are helping address so many painful and difficult choices that we have ahead of us. But tonight I also want to put on record my thanks to Glenn Peach, our Director of Family Services, who retires later this week after 20 years of dedicated services. Glenn, you have been a fantastic advocate for our children and young people and have overseen an outstanding children's social care services. We will all miss you. Mr. Mayor, in Family and Children's Services, we're leading the way, focusing on early intervention, safeguarding, and giving our children every chance in life. Children are at the heart of what we do, and we're ambitious for our young people. But all through the country, there's an incredibly challenging picture for children's services. Here in KNC, there are 17 looked after children whose placements are costing us in excess of £2.5 million a year. Collectively, these children account for 65% of our placement budgets. These are stark figures, and they bring into harsh reality the financial pressures we are under before we even consider the implications of the fairer funding on this council. Mr. Mayor, we've already saved a fifth of our total controllable budget, but this will rise to almost a third by the end of this financial strategy. And we don't want to make any of these cuts, but we are being forced to make them. And we want to remain laser-focused, though, on continued quality and outcomes. This council has already led the way in delivering many of the SEND reforms announced by the government this week. Bridget Phillipson, we're way ahead of you. Inclusion is at the heart of what we do. We've invested £3.2 million in providing SEND provision. Specialist schools like Kensington Queens Mill, Ormiston, Latimer, various satellites across the borough have not only catered to different levels of needs, but have provided excellent local provision and saved £300,000 a year in transport costs. We have maintained 55% of our young people in SEND in mainstream provisions. That's 12% higher than national average. It's a win on every level. And our youth services that you seem to be critical of, we're spending more on youth services than any other council. And so far it's been a great success. 32,000 attendees have attended with our local youth provision. And our grants through KNC has attracted substantial match funding. So, contrary to predictions from Labour, we're not cutting any of our youth services. But I would like to take the Labour amendments, which really alarmed me that they don't seem to understand the decisions we have to make with children's services and how we're facing them full on. It's like a drunken gambler, as has been alluded to, just throwing a dice and hoping they'll come up with more money. But children are more important than gambling on their future. For example, two examples I want to bring out to you. The transfer of nurseries to 2 North Kensington primaries, who have really welcomed them. They don't want to do that. This move will give them extra funding, get more feet through their doors, and are a vital measure to help schools deal with falling roles. So this is positive for their long-term sustainability, but it's also in line with their government's national strategy for increasing school-based nursery provision. And the opposition also do not support the creation of a by-borough family services model, something we are having to implement to adapt to this government's Family First reforms. Do they not agree with their own government? The opposition have no tangible alternatives to the reforms imposed upon us. And when we talk about expanding provision in mainstream settings and alternative provision, we actually get ahead and build it. We're looking to the future. And when we say we want to deliver outstanding services for our young people, we listen to those young people and we deliver those services for them. We will navigate this tricky path ahead of us, and meanwhile we'll continue to maintain the standard of services our residents, our children and our parents deserve. And when we say we want to be the best, we mean it, and we'll continue to deliver it.
Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and canter through some of this. Quickly, obviously, just to thank Jem and the team for the amount of work. Oh, my goodness me, the amount of meetings we went to and the number of times I read this. Just as a testament to the fact that we really have toiled over this. These are difficult decisions that we don't take lightly. And I embrace the idea of efficiency and how we might get better and provide services without denigrating children. And I celebrate the fact I wrote down here delivering services, and I've crossed it out and put maintaining services. This is maintaining services that we are outstanding and excellent on anyway. So, Mr. Mayor, I want to talk a little about businesses because we as a council are very pro-business and pro-growth, and because it's the bedrock of not only the local economy, but it's also one of the biggest sources of employment that we have within our borough. And so the unavoidable truth, Mr. Mayor, is that our businesses are really struggling. And, we're under siege from the decisions taken by this government, from business rates, from national insurance, let alone the latest threat, which is continued within the paper, which is we're going to be adopting an aggressive approach to our rental growth, which I feel sorry for the shopkeepers on Portobello Road where we own their poles. But it illustrates to me how what you look at is this ability look at a shop as somebody who could be milked and maybe somebody who's a millionaire. But yes, these are hard-working businesses. But anyway, we will. So I'm sure all of you as well have experienced these discussions from talking to some of our businesses about how tough it is. Elizabeth and I met with the bids of the borough last week to hear directly from them, and I'm actually very proud in terms of what our bids are doing. So far we've supported 50 businesses, over 100 entrepreneurs, and we must continue to do this, sir. So why is this important? And again, it's because the government are failing youth unemployment, and that is on the rise, and that's something which we really need to do and that's why we've launched the somewhat kidnapped apprenticeship and bursary pilot, which the opposition are now claiming to be their own. And this is something which is going to be funded from public health, and it will be very much linked into our Fairer Action plan. And it's all about the things that we should be doing, breaking down barriers of employment, getting money into people's pockets. And I think the message is very clear on this side of the House of what we stand for. bow, Mr Mayor. So we're committed to delivering services to residents, and I also want to just highlight the obsession that we have on museums, and a budget meeting wouldn't be one to mention the words Leighton House. But visitor numbers are at an all-time high, and we're getting more income from events from these museums than we ever have. And we have a very clear plan to make our museums cost neutral over the course of the financial plan. And this is not unworkable gifting to the national health proposed by the opposition. So, preserving our heritage, encouraging outreach as well, which is something that comes from Leighton House. Also, Mr Mayor, I'd like to refer to, again, it's been referred to earlier, to Portobello Road, because last week we've approved 4.4 million investment for strengthening Portobello Road, and it's going to preserve its heritage and very much add resilience to it in the future. And we've amended the scheme from talking to residents, and I'm very proud that we've got it. So, Mr Mayor, leadership, this budget is a budget without vision and without scrutiny as well. And I see the Labour's amendment at the moment of just a reflection of what's happening in government. Take, tax, spend. 7 references within here, to the north. The only reference to the south happens to be South Kent's Tube Station. What I find very curious also, I don't know who's going to put their hand up and own up to being the Director of Financial Management, but you've got 50% of all your comments are just repeat. This is ChatGPT. It just talks about the decision to these savings proposal, etc. So I think it sums the Labour group up. Their approach to step-free access, TBC. Their stance on Labour's heinous fair funding, TBC. Their approach to transforming services for children, TBC. And that's just not good enough, Mr Mayor. It's something that this chamber, we should be proud of our achievements. Our budget is fair and balanced, it delivers more savings, and it has our residents' priorities at our hearts. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, I was just busy congratulating my colleague on his TBC speech. I think that is excellent. So we've had painting by numbers and TBC. I'm loving this. All right, so I'm standing up just to talk very briefly about temporary accommodation, but councils all over the country are faced with huge budget pressures because of temporary accommodation. But I would like to congratulate the finance team and all other parts of the council who has helped step in and fill the gap that the government has created with not funding temporary accommodation correctly. So thank you very much to the lead member and the Director of Finance for doing this. And just another thing about temporary accommodation, something which the government has done which has been beyond our control, is the Renters' Rights Bill. Now, of course, we are completely for rights for renters. But once again, the government has not thought about the consequence of its actions in putting forward a bill like this, because many good landlords have stopped being landlords. And we as a council, we rely on private landlords to house many of our residents, and often our most vulnerable residents. So at a peak recently, we had over 200 landlords asking for their properties back. So that is potentially 200 households who are going to be homeless. But it's not all doom and gloom. Luckily, there are some things we as a council that we can control that are not at the mercy of this government. And so a big thank you to the Royal Borough of Kensington-Chelsea housing team. We are bucking the London trend and are actually getting our TA household numbers down, and that's despite rising applications. And we are actually getting contacted by other councils, Labour councils, asking us how we are doing this. So well done to the team. And the reason they've managed to do this, they've tightened up on our processes. We've been clear about who we do or do not owe a duty to, so we can focus on those who genuinely need our help. And we have worked with families who have been in temporary flats for many, many years to help them find settled homes. So our households in temporary accommodation are now under 2,000 for the first time in many years. So all the talk from the opposition saying we don't focus on our vulnerable, not only in this budget are we committing £5 million extra to supporting our vulnerable residents in temporary accommodation, but we are also managing to support them into settled homes. And now with the excellent pension fund properties, thanks to my colleague Emma Will doing this, coming available later this year, we will be providing excellent quality homes at affordable cost to the council and to our taxpayers. So as I've always said, solving TA is not just one silver bullet, but it's many actions all at once, involving many different teams working together. And this is what a Conservative council does. We do practical, persistent improvements and how we work together. And this is combined with innovative thinking and solutions to tackle some of our biggest problems that we have. So thank you for this budget.
Councillor Pascal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. FCS scrutiny has witnessed through this year the building of a budget that enables continuation of its transformation of its services. The general provision that is for the most of our children through schools increasingly joined up early years, nursery and primary, together with family hubs, a model that is even now recognised by the national government. Early diagnosis of SEN needs combined with timely early interventions are paying off with better school readiness and projected attainment outcomes. On a recent visit to a primary school with those services all joined up, a mother said that in addition to her children being better looked after, it changed her life as she was able to also to return to her job of saving lives in the hospital in which she worked. As Councillor Knight said, it is possible to improve support to our adults and children at sustainable cost through transformation to a more inclusive and joined-up approach. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would any other member wish to speak on this item? Councillor Hargreaves.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. And I've actually spoken in 16 budget debates. My first was actually my maiden speech, and tonight this will be my last budget contribution, as it's my last meeting. But anyway, I just want to speak in, obviously echo my thanks to the officers and the lead members for the enormous amount of work that's gone into this budget, probably the most difficult budget in those 16 years to put together. So I thank them enormously for that. But I just want to touch on it in my role as chairman of the Audit and Transparency Committee. And in that role, I meet with chairs across London and indeed across the country. And in discussion, I've come to realise and to understand the dire state that some council finances are in. Massive overspend, failed commercial activities, poor accounting practices, accounts not signed off. I could continue. And we only need to look at those once great cities like Liverpool and Birmingham to realise that that is absolutely true and what happens when councils do not do great budgeting and follow some basic principles. At the heart of doing money, which we do well, and I always remember one member of the Audit and Transparency Committee saying on several occasions, K&C does money well. And at the heart of doing money well lies good budgeting and robust and fair budgets. And the budget presented to us this evening is exactly that, robust and fair, and will actually transpire into good financial management. And we contrast that, don't we, with the Labour amendment, which I now understand. I was just reading a list of things. I now understand it is the Labour amendment. And you asked us not to repeat things tonight, Mr. Mayor, so I won't. Councillor Hammond started. I think you got to number 5. Oh, he's gone. I think, Councillor Hammond, you got to number 5. Number 4, I think you got to. So, Mr. Mayor, may I continue not to repeat by going on to item number 6? And what we read in item number 6 is the Director of Financial Management's comments. So there is a risk associated with building it into the budget assumptions. Item number 7, there is a risk. Item number 10, there is a risk. I'm sorry, I am repeating myself. I'll be useless on just a minute, but it's here. It's here, and I can't get away with it. There is a risk that income may not be achieved. Item number 11, there is a risk that this income may not be achieved. I could go on. But that, Labour are telling us, is a well-thought-through, financially responsible budget. Thank you. Now, each of us in this chamber will have their own particular interests depending on the particular needs of their ward. And in Chelsea Riverside, one of the most densely populated wards in the borough, I am pleased to see that the council is continuing to invest in our parks and green spaces, including the exciting, as we've heard, the open space in Cremorne Wharf. And I know that the residents are really excited about that and have been involved in the consultation and design process that we've gone through in that open space. The provision of 65 new extra care homes as part of the Lots Road South development are very welcome and will bring much needed homes, these new homes, these types of homes, into Chelsea. As a riparian ward, I am pleased to see the council's commitment to the embankment river wall repairs and the continued commitment to solving the current structural problems with Albert Bridge. The latter, of course, Mr Mayor, is in complete contrast to our neighbour-controlled Hammersmith and Fulham, who continue to keep Hammersmith Bridge closed while they squabble about who should pay for it. We have a provision in our budget, we take our duties responsibly, and we will deal with this as it comes up. Mr Mayor, this is a robust and balanced budget, but above all, it is a fair budget, especially under the challenging situation created by the Labour government and presumably fully supported by our 2 Labour constituency MPs. And if you say they don't support it, then we'll look forward to them going through the lobby with us when our MPs vote against these provisions at a national level. It is fair, Mr Mayor. It is fair because it is a below minimum council tax increase. It is fair in its protection and in some cases increased spending on improved services for our vulnerable residents. It is fair in the £186 million general fund capital expenditure over the next 4 years. It is fair in the provisions to continue to fund 100% discretionary council tax for care leavers up to 25th birthday. It is fair in the provisions to invest £430 million in council house stock through the HRA. And it is fair in the way that the council is managing its costs and seeking new ways to increase commercial activities to generate additional income. Mr Mayor, in this most challenging of times, this is indeed a budget for a greener, safer and fairer Kensington and Chelsea, and I commend it to the whole chamber.
Councillor Hadd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I see the time's clicking on. I shall be very brief. As chair of the Working Budget Group, which is included in this report, I would like to thank all the committee members for their valuable contributions, the officers who supported it, and to Councillor Mary Wheel, whose excellent chairing of the OSCE contributed hugely to it. If I may, I would like to highlight recommendation 3 of the report on the theme of procurement. The Budget Working Group identified procurement as central to achieving savings. It is absolutely critical to controlling future costs. So I quote recommendation 3. The leadership team is requested to review and develop its systems for assessing the effectiveness and benefits of the Council's new procurement arrangements, including making sufficient use of frameworks. Now, this has already been said ad nauseum this evening, but I feel that one can't say this enough, so I shall repeat it. Given the budgetary pressures we face from the central government, it is particularly impressive that this Conservative Council, huge congratulations and thanks, as I would like to extend my colleagues, to the lead member, Councillor Jem Kamali, and to the Financial Officer, Mike Curtis, and his team, in producing this brilliant balanced budget. Assuming that the electorate will continue to support us, the Conservatives, on 7th of May, I hope that we can emulate this in future years. Finally, we look to the leadership team to continue their fiscal prudence with which they have led to date, particularly given the challenging times ahead. I commend this budget to the Chamber. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Would any other member like to speak on this debate? In which case, I ask Councillor Lowry to sum up for up to 5 minutes.
Mr Mayor, the overarching vision from this Conservative-run council is either too little or too late. This council's complaints about the level of government funding cannot be taken seriously when it is this council that has a history of choosing underspending and funneling vital resources into reserves, a council that prioritised Opera Holland Park and sculptures rather than providing vital services. A council that makes basic fiscal mistakes, be it through leaving residents vulnerable with outdated and inadequate IT systems, now costing the council millions to correct. Or perhaps last year, making the mistake of being one of the only local authorities in the country not to charge council tax premium on those second homes to generate vital income we need. This year, they have reversed their position after pressure from we, the Labour Party. We in the Labour opposition propose to use the additional income from second home premiums to enhance our services, including abolishing all home care, daycare, transport and home meal charges for our residents. If our neighbours in Hounslow and Fulham can do that, so can we, and on a balanced budget. The choices this council has made demonstrate that the Tory majority does not believe in equality. What was the council's reaction to the government this year? It was to choose to cut council tax reduction scheme, which was designed to protect those on the very lowest incomes. We in the Labour Party instead have other plans on where to save. For example, we propose saving money by handing ownership of Leighton House and 18 Stafford Terrace over to the National Trust and thereby releasing at least an additional £400,000, which we would then instead use not only towards restoring Council tax reduction scheme, but also towards providing free swimming for the under-16s and free school uniforms for those who desperately need them. There are members of the Conservative Party here who believe that philanthropy should fund youth services. However, we believe philanthropy can instead fund cultural services like museums in the instance when we are faced with the critical choice of choosing between these or assisting our residents in need and our own ratepayers. As a Labour group, we challenge this council's record on community safety. The serious incidents, including murder and violent crime in North Kensington, and the prevalence of gangs, which is exacerbated by the reduction in community facilities for our youth, also mean that it is imperative we address the structural underfunding of North Kensington wards when it comes to community services and safety. To repair this, we as a Labour group are proposing to address the inequitable distribution of resources through the Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Levies and CLLL. Today, the £1,794 this council has allocated as NSIL support for Golborne residents is overshadowed by the £938,790 allocated to support Brompton and Handstown and the £926,085 allocated for Abingdon wards. Call it £2 million just for those two wards. Could the lead member explain to me how that allocation is fair, Councillor Kamali, and why the council hasn't amended that formula? The Labour Group alternative budget proposes, at no expense to the taxpayer whatsoever, to reallocate resources to our most deprived neighbourhoods. Through this, we are proposing to empower our residents by giving them the funding to take decisions on how they want to shape their communities. This could bolster community safety efforts through funding our community safety officers by the Ward Fund, CCTV, local infrastructure. We also, through our budget, propose the recruitment of 5 more cross-ward community safety officers, bolstering visible presence of police and public safety officers on patrol on our streets. We use our budget to provide a progressive vision for our youth. The new Kensington and Chelsea Community Entrepreneurship Scheme would create more jobs for local residents, enhance skills, training and develop new business leaders who will reinvest in the community. And not to mention our scholarship for Grenfell-affected youth. The Labour Group budget tonight presents a broad, progressive, resident-led vision for the budget in order to provide these services our communities have said they desire and require, most importantly putting residents in control. To conclude, Mr Mayor, may I just also repeat what Councillor Claire Simmons mentioned earlier, which is so apt when it comes to Conservative responsible fiscal planning, that a saving of £293,000 on the cladding of Grenfell Tower has resulted in a £1.2 billion cost to the taxpayer to date. Mr Mayor, I conclude by thanking all the officers who worked on our Labour Group amendment. Our amendment is fair, balanced and provides a positive vision for our borough. I commend the amendment to the Chamber.
Councillor Kamali, will you please respond to the debate? You have up to 5 minutes.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Including Councillor Lari there, I counted 24 speakers. Looking at the Labour amendment, I'm not even certain they can count that high. This budget is, we started with Councillor Ali, who gave us a bit of a geology lesson. And what we learnt here tonight is that the budget here on this side was made out of a gem, but theirs is merely fool's gold. And looking towards the Labour group, they certainly aren't gold. We followed on with Councillor Simmons, again talking about clay and other geological features. Councillor Lindsay rightly talked about productivity, and we do indeed need to raise productivity to make sure we can weather this storm. I'm going to bundle a few together because there were quite a few. We had Councillor Knight, Councillor Siren and Councillor Rendell talk about adult social care and reiterate the point that we have the best adult social care services in the country. We heard from Councillor Hammond that there are many difficult decisions that were taken in this budget, but it is testament to the officers that we were able to put together something that did balance, and indeed we were even able to find some money for more cleaner street provision. Councillor Dorene highlighted the fact that this was done in a very short period of time, and that's true. We thought initially we had only had to save 82 million. It wasn't until 2 months later did we find out that the Labour government got their sums wrong again, and it was actually 108 million. That made a lot of the work we had done, whilst worthy, it simply meant it wasn't enough, and we had to make tougher decisions closer to tonight. We continue to hear from Emma Dent-Code, Councillor Wade, and Councillor Jeddah. Not a lot to say there. We heard from Councillor Thalasites. He made good reference of the canvassing he's been doing in Holland. I do wonder if he's been able to count any Labour candidates in Holland. I certainly haven't seen any myself out there. Councillor Will managed to reference Thatcher, which always is something I welcome to hear in this chamber. Councillor Benton pointed out that it was a Conservative budget, so I am glad he's aware which party we are, at least, if he's not so certain of which party he may be standing for. Councillor McVeigh made a good point around temporary accommodation, and I'm sure we'll hear more when we speak to the HRA, if we get there this evening. Councillor Pascal and Councillor Hudd, and indeed Councillor Wheel, made good reference about the work scrutiny has to play in not only getting to this budget, but also in the budgets that we'll have in the years ahead. There's a huge amount of work that will need to be done by all colleagues in this chamber to help make sure that we can continue to set balanced budgets going forwards. Councillor Hargreaves, after 16 budgets, he saved his best speech to last, I must say. Referencing all the wonderful things that he's been able to deliver in Chelsea Riverside Ward, and as one of his residents, I'm very happy to have had him as my councillor. We then wrapped up with Sina, who again is talking about NSIL. This is just, I mean, between Councillor Jeddah talking about CLL and the Labour Party talking about NSIL, frankly, it's like a hole in the head. We really need to move on from it. If they want more NSIL money, they have to build some houses. It's really simple. Build some houses, get some NSIL. And that's what the Conservatives have been doing.
The last speech of the evening.
Councillor Jeddah, thank you very much. It's great to hear you ramble on. As always, indeed, thank you. I think I've just about touched on everybody's contributions tonight. And to the Labour members that we won't see again after May, goodbye, and thanks for all the laughs.
Right. We now proceed to the votes. So members will be aware that this is going to be a recorded vote. So you'll need to vote on your buttons in front of you. Just to remind you, so no one makes any mistakes, the I button is the top one, and the no button is the bottom one. The first vote, councillors, the first vote is on the Labour amendment to the budget. And you'll have, from when the button starts to flash, you'll have 30 seconds to vote. So this is on the Labour amendment to the budget. Please vote now. Right. Voting is complete. The voting is as follows. For the amendment, 7 votes. Against the amendment, 31 votes. 6 not voting. I therefore declare the amendment lost. So we now move on to the vote on the revenue budget, capital programme and council tax for 2026-27 unamended. The council has before it the recommendations set out in paragraphs 2.2 and 2.3. Would you please vote now? Right, so we have the results on the vote on the revenue budget, capital programme and council tax 26-27. The voting is as follows. For 31, against 10, not voting 3. I therefore declare the revenue budget, capital programme and council tax for 2026-27 adopted. Okay. Right. Members, colleagues, councillors. Councillors will be aware that we must complete all 3 budget items this evening. So would Councillor Addenbrooke move and Councillor Lowry please second the suspension of Standing Order 26.01 to allow the meeting to conclude after Agenda Item 9. Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to move?
I wish to move.
Councillor Lowry?
I wish to second.
Does the Chamber agree? Agreed. Thank you. We now turn to the Housing Revenue Account Budget and Business Plan. I call on Councillor McVeigh to move the report's adoption and Councillor Campbell to second.
I move the report.
I'd like to second, Mr. Mayor.
I call on Councillor McVeigh to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And as we are approaching 9:30, I will try to be brief. But obviously, the Housing Revenue Account is a very important budget because it does impact all our tenants. First of all, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to cast your mind back to earlier this evening to, I think, 7 p.m. when the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Ali, just before you leave the room, when we're talking about the HRA budget, perhaps you might want to stay. But also, if I may be so bold, you're actually incorrect when you talked about our report from the housing regulator. I would like to correct you because we actually passed all our health and safety and compliance criteria. In fact, the regulator said we were good across all main aspects of our health and safety. Anyway, as you have now left the chamber, because obviously the HRA is not important to you and all your tenants in the north of the borough, I would just like to say how important it is to us and how we have balanced this budget. And one point I was going to talk about, a very important point called rent convergence, which you can actually find on page 403 of your pack, 417 of your pack. But seeing it's almost 9:30, I will not go into rent convergence, but it is explained there. But basically, all London councils wanted the government to do rent convergence. The government, in its wisdom, said no. And they are going to eventually do it in 2017. If they had done it before that, they could have unlocked over £100 million of additional investment into our homes to support the much-needed work that all social tenants need to have done to their homes across London. Anyway, the government just ignored us and decided just to tell us to borrow more money instead. But I will not be taking advice, financial advice from this government. We are already committed to the works on our homes, and we want to make them better for our residents. We plan, as the budget said, to invest almost £500 million. £500 million, that is a huge amount of money to support our residents, some of them our most vulnerable residents, to make their homes better. So we've already achieved a huge amount of work on this. I think everyone in the chamber will know about how I talk a lot about our double glazing. We've done thousands of those, and we have completed many, many major works on estates like Swimbrook, Henry Dickens and Pond House estates. So I would like to commend this housing revenue account budget to everyone in the chamber who's actually still here, to the chamber, and I think the officers have done an excellent job on this. Thank you very much.
I now invite other members to speak on this item for up to 5 minutes each, but anyone who can conclude their points in 3 minutes will be demonstrating great eloquence and precision of language, which will be enormously impressive to the chamber. So councillors who have indicated that they wish to speak. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to thank the officers for this thorough, comprehensive, balanced and accessible report. The paper lays out very clearly the challenges facing the HRA. In the context of a self-financing model, the impacts of historic underinvestment, government rent controls, inflation and a whole slew of new, albeit necessary and welcome, regulatory requirements are simply unsustainable, as is acknowledged at 10.3 on page 423. As is also acknowledged in the report, this situation is not new. The picture has been increasingly stark for several years. Mathematically, this is a beautiful budget, but I would like to look past the numbers at what this actually means for residents. The savings identified in Table 5, I hope, are deliverable without detriment to service delivery. But for residents, the main headlines are rent increases, service charge increases, increases to other fees and charges, and the pausing of Phase 3 of the New Homes programme. In the context of continuing year-on-year rent increases, and in addition to affordability concerns, I wish to draw the Council's attention to Section 3.3 on page 407, where Section 24 of the Housing Act 1989 states that a local housing authority may make such reasonable charges as they determine for the tenancy or occupation of their homes. We have heard from residents in this very chamber how council rents compare with the rents at luxurious buildings across the borough, and it has been wondered how this is reasonable. Similarly, we have heard how council service charges compare with those of luxury blocks which have a concierge, a gym, a cinema, and so forth. The question of reasonableness still needs to be looked at. Are residents across the borough getting value for money in their service charges, and if not, why not? And are rents reasonable given the living conditions, including non-decency, of a significant proportion of our homes, not to mention those undergoing intrusive major works? At what point will the Council be open to legal challenge on reasonability grounds? And where is this significant financial risk factored in? There's a very specific aspect to the reasonableness question as it pertains to Lancaster West Estate, whose resident speeches in this chamber I have alluded to just now. In particular, are rents at Lancaster West Estate reasonable, given the living conditions of those properties at the site of a national disaster? Note that rents were frozen after the fire and that much of the rationale for this still pertains. Therefore, it's unclear why the freeze is not still in place. I'm running out of time. I'd like to say something a little bit quickly about the Tenant Support Fund. As rents continue to increase, the call on the Tenant Support Fund is going to increase commensurately, and yet I notice there is no increase in this budget to the Tenant Support Fund, which prompts the question, is this going to be enough to support those tenants who will need it? Tenants not in receipt of universal credit or housing benefit, but on low or fixed incomes, receive no protection from these rent increases. I asked this last year and I ask it again, how are they supposed to absorb these increases? The Tenant Support Fund absolutely must take into account these as well as other vulnerabilities mentioned, in keeping with the intention to target support to those who are vulnerable. In regards to pension credits, may I ask what of those residents who are on the minimum state pension and therefore have the same income but none of the support afforded to those receiving pension credit? This, I think, is an omission that needs to be addressed at this stage by in-year revisions or adjustments to the tenant support fund as necessary. I've got 1 more minute. I wanted to talk a little bit about efficiency savings. It's clear from the papers that have come to Housing and Communities Select Committee over the year that there is scope for efficiency savings, for example, by improving repairs, complaint handling, procurement, contract management of major works. I'm pleased to see that some of these are identified in the future plans outlined at 6.5 on page 412. They need to be prioritised, operationalised and implemented without delay or defensiveness. But I noticed that the transformational aspects mentioned in this paper do not include implementing recommendations from scrutiny on repairs, including the resident scrutiny, which I know the Director of Housing Management was very impressed by, or the learning from the end-to-end review of complaints, where a significant proportion comes from housing needs and management. There are also the cost of disrepair claims against the Council, which also have implications for the budget. In closing, I do note that there is very little room for manoeuvre in the HRA. This has been the case for some time and is unlikely to change without either detriments to residents or subsidy and a return to the principle of social housing. I'll be pleased to work with officers and league members to this end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor North.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. This is a very detailed, difficult and balanced budget. But as a member of the Housing and Communities Select Committee, I will pick up on one point that my colleague did pick up on and support the Tenant Support Fund. We are rare as a council to have this in addition to other benefits. I'm pleased that we will maintain this budget and I'm proud that we will do so. Our vulnerable residents, and this budget is currently at £200,000, which is indeed welcome to many that have difficult times ahead and to maintain their tenancies. It will be in addition to universal credit and housing benefits already in place. The cost of living is still a main concern for many of our residents, and at this difficult time, for some of us, colleagues, I would say this is what a caring Conservative council looks like. I will just take one other point, as it's been mentioned, but as our colleagues on the opposition I would say, move the deck chairs around on the Titanic, to use a nautical analogy that was done earlier. They decide which party they're going to stand for in the coming elections. Some of them may be doing chicken runs into different wards that they may perceive to be safer. But I came across this sign in pubs, which gives a clear message to anybody standing for the Labour. And yes, these are in Kensington pubs, because I came across pubs that are laying off staff because of the taxes and the budgets created by this government. So this is the message that we should be telling people on the doorstep, no matter if you don't want to represent the residents that elected you last time. Thank you.
Councillor Jeddett. Councillor Jeddett.
I will pass on that subject because we are richly pressed by time. Right, I have to be considerate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Right, I've got the lead member next to me saying, be really quick, and I know we're all hungry. I'm only really speaking to this because this, for me, is quite an emotional housing revenue account. And I find myself actually congratulating Councillor Simmons on her forensic analysis of the budget. Shame we didn't have that on the main budget, but that's by the by. And I think the striking thing that we all need to remember here is paragraph 4.2, which is the HRA faces significant financial challenges arising from intensive investments. And that's because we took back, to remind you, we took back from the TMO back in 2003, and it showed I think it was 70 million, it's referred to in the report, of outstanding backlog of repairs. And we have done stock condition surveys, and we're obviously spending a lot more. Credit to Soph and her team for managing that process. But it's paid for by rent, as Claire said. I mean, it's paid for rent, it's paid for by service charge, it's paid for by contribution to heating. And unfortunately for our residents, they don't get the service charge and central heating from universal credits as well. So these things really do. But we have to balance the books. And within this budget, there's quite a few things which have been looked at, innovative ways of how we're going to run that. But that is a big worry to us as a council, is the impact of this work. And I think back to when we inherited back things like Silchester, which had a regeneration scheme. Hindsight might be, it would have been better to regenerate it now because the amount of money we're spending, and it's not from neglect, it's a factor of the fact that our average housing stock is from the 1960s. And all of this legislation that's coming, which you can describe as being necessary or not, is all going to impact. But the impact of putting damp proofing within Victoria buildings, when we see our resident providers selling them because they're just not going to afford to do it, that is something we're going to very much have to navigate. But I will end by just commending and thanking Soph and her team. It's a really tricky subject. Thank you.
Would any other member like to speak on this item? In which case, I call on Councillor McVeigh to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as the hour is late, I do not need to repeat myself, but I would just like to acknowledge that all the contributions have been incredibly thoughtful and that we do spend a lot of time and effort looking at this budget, and from the opposition as well and from my colleagues, thank you all very much for your input in this.
Are the recommendations set out in paragraph 3.2 adopted? I declare the recommendations adopted. The next item is the Annual Treasury Management Strategy Statement 2026-2027. I call on Councillor Campbell to move the report's adoption and Councillor Kamali to second.
I'd like to move the report, Mr. Mayor.
I beg to second.
I call on Councillor Kamali to speak to the report.
I'm sure everyone doesn't want me to have 5 minutes about the gilt rates and yield curves, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Would any other member wish to speak on this item? No. Excellent. I now ask the Chamber, are the recommendations set out in paragraph 4.2 adopted? I declare the recommendations adopted. Item 10, there are no reports from Council side committees. Item 11, there are no reports from Overview and Scrutiny Committee or the Select Committees. Item 12, which is questions to lead members. In the interest of time, written answers are going to be provided to those questions.
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order. In the 16 years I've actually posed questions, I have never received a written answer.
Okay, well, that is noted. Do you have a question on this occasion, Councillor Wade? You do, yes. So I'm sure the relevant lead member will ensure that you do get a written answer on this occasion.
It's about people's ability to vote.
Understood. I'm sure the lead member, that's minuted, I'm sure the lead member has noted that, and I've no doubt you will receive a written answer to that question. Item 13, which is matters of local concern, raised under Standing Order 13. Again, in the interest of time, members agree that we do not take that item. Agreed. Fantastic. We now move on to the additional item, for which we need a proposal from the whips.
No,
if whips would like to propose it.
Mr. Mayor, in accordance with Standing Order 44, I wish to move that Standing Order 5.05 and 32 be suspended to allow retiring members 3 minutes each for their speeches.
Councillor Dent-Code, would you like to second that? Thank you. Is that agreed? So I shall now call on the members whose names have been passed to me first, and then I shall see who else wishes to speak. Councillor Hargreaves.
Mr Mayor, thank you very much, and I do appreciate there are a lot of members wishing to speak on this who are leaving the Chamber at this election, so I will be brief. But I want to put on record my sincere and humble thanks to the residents of Chelsea Riverside and Cremorne Ward before that for putting their faith in me and electing me 4 times as their ward councillor. Now, my first visit to London was as an 8-year-old Cub Scout from Lancashire. We stayed at Baden-Powell House in Queensgate. We visited the Natural History Museum, quite a contrast, I have to say, to Blackburn Municipal Museum, but nevertheless, and went to a show at the Royal Albert Hall. Such began my relationship with the Royal Borough of Kensington-Chelsea. And I could not have imagined that 60 years later, I would be making my final speech at the end of 16 fascinating years as a councillor in this great borough of ours, including, I have to say, as only one of 3 people ever to have served as mayor for 2 terms. During that time, I had the pleasure and honour of getting to know and working with some amazing residents, amazing community workers, council staff and fellow councillors across all parties in this chamber. To all of them, I give an enormous thanks for the support that you have given me and to the wider community of RBKC. During that time, I've also come to appreciate that our borough, like others, is really just a collection of numerous community groups, resident associations, amenity societies, youth clubs, churches, faith groups, numerous others, who in turn make this borough work in its most amazing dedication of residents who put their time into those organisations. It is them that make these communities work, and it is them that make this borough a better place to live in. And as budgets get tougher and the pressure is on our services, more on our services, we will need to rely on these people and these organisations even more. And we know that in challenging times, it is these organisations that step up and give their all. And we saw this during COVID, and we saw this during the aftermath of the Grenfell tragedy. For my part as a councillor, perhaps more as a resident, I wish to thank them for what they do now and for what they will do in the future. As we rightly seek to make the council more effective, I hope you will just allow me for 2 seconds just to indulge in a bit of a reflection. And as we seek to make the council more effective, the use of AI, automatic processes to deliver council services, I think that the role of a councillor becomes even more important. For it is us, the elected representatives, that remain the human face of the council. Thankfully, we are supported by amazing officers, but it is us at the end of the day that our residents elect to run the council on their behalf. It is us that bring the council alive, and it is to us that our residents turn when they need to talk to the council. I was taught by one of the best in the former Councillor Mairead Condon-Simmons, who in the work she did as a ward councillor not only brought the council alive, she made it dance. Mr Mayor, in the last 16 years, I have tried in my own small way to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Verboven.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'll keep it brief. I first would like to start with thanking my partner, who for many years patiently allowed me to run around Earls Court, meeting and supporting many of our residents. I very much look forward spending a bit more time with him going forward. I would also like to thank officers in their support for the many, many pieces of casework that Linda and I have taken on, and for their support during my time on the Planning and Environment Committees. Next, I would like to thank the residents of Earls Court. Earls Court is a ward with a strong sense of community, and it has been an absolute honour to represent them in the last 4 years, and I will certainly miss it when I move out of the borough after calling it my home for the past 18 years. I would also like to thank Hamish. Following the 2022 election, Earls Court was the only split ward, and I do think we have been able to create a positive working relationship, agreeing in many cases, and I very much appreciated that. I think the Earls Court residents also appreciated that their 3 ward councillors were able to work together in such an easy way. Yeah. Last but not least, I would like to thank Linda. I have worked with Linda not just for the past 4 years, but I've known her for a decade now, and her knowledge, vigour and empathy were an invaluable support during my time on the council. This became not only a very strong working relationship, but also a close friendship. Thank you.
Councillor Lindsay.
Mr. Mayor, to be a councillor is to serve, to represent our residents, and with others to work to improve the life of all borough residents. It has been a privilege to serve as a scrutiny chairman on the leadership team and as mayor, helping to ensure a great education for borough children, helping the most vulnerable children and their parents, and having high safeguarding standards are RBKC values of which I am proud to have played a part. In 24 years, some things have changed. Demographics, Lime bikes, and to society's shame, more anti-Semitic graffiti in Norland in the last 2 years than in the previous 22. Other things have changed less. Government seeking ever more control, their love for RBKC residents' wealth, but not them. Whitehall wanting problems to go away rather than dealing with them. Target-busting inflation. Regular flooding in Norland. The ongoing ineptitude of Thames Water and of most housing associations. Many of the same issues appearing on our committee papers. No one who was there will ever forget the Grenfell fire. It was a tragedy that should never have happened. It is right that part of the council's legacy is to be the best council we can be. To me, briefly, that means the provision of consistently high-quality services across the borough, sound finances, effective collaboration with the many little platoons that so characterise RBKC, high-quality housing, whether council, registered social landlord, or private, working constructively with others. In my time serving, there have been mistakes. Some 3.5 years ago, as mayor, I said something that I should not have. It was wrong. Immediately I said it, I realized that words had blurted from my mouth and said, "I'm sorry, forgive me." It was not said with malicious or racist intent. It was never my intention to cause pain, but I am clear that my remark did so, both amongst those who heard it and amongst those who have read about it since. Tonight, I want to repeat to the whole council, through you, Mr. Mayor, how sorry I am and to ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing wrong, nor is it giving someone a pass for harm done. It involves us letting go of anger and resentment, and it ideally brings us a kind of peace that allows us all to focus on getting on life together. When I was mayor, I often cited the borough's motto, "Please God, may it be a reality in the future that RBKC is a place where brothers and sisters dwell together in unity." And last, it has been a great privilege to have served here. Thank you, RBKC councillors. Thank you, RBKC officers. And thank you, Norland residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I first want to start, and I will be brief, just by saying what a pleasure it has been to work with you all as colleagues, and I think especially Sam and Roberto. Sam, you were so welcoming when I joined the council, and you'd served as a councillor before, and you were always on hand to give me advice and support me in Queensgate. And Roberto, it's been so fun working with you as you put so much effort and time and dedication into making our ward a better place, and you'll be a great loss to this council. I have so many great memories on this council. I'll just pick two very briefly. The first was going out with our street enforcement team, Emma Coulson in Queensgate, and I actually took a day off work to go around with her and help her tag rubbish, pick it up, and my impression was just how many great officers we have working for this council, people that are dedicated to their role, people who work day in, day out, often unseen, or unheard, but do a fantastic job, and I really appreciated being able to spend some time with them. A second memory I'll just mention is when I was mayor, I felt very lucky to have served a year as mayor on this council. Training with young people in North Kensington for the boxing, it was just so much fun to meet them all, and my enduring memory is just how much great talent and drive and ambition we have all across our borough, in every part of it. And I think as we go forward, I hope that we remember, and Councillor Ali spoke about it right at the start, but how much we have in common and how much people from all areas of this borough have in common. And in an age where we do often feel divided, polarisation feels greater than ever before. I think most, if not all, members of this council do work together in the interests of our residents. It was why we were elected. It's our job. And I think that's really impressive in this day and age. So just finally, even though I'm moving out of the borough to live with my future wife in Cambridge, Queensgate and Kensington and Chelsea will always feel like home to me. Thank you very much.
Your ward colleague, Councillor Whedon-Sands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One feels rather inadequate speaking tonight, having only done a term and following so many colleagues with distinguished decades of service. So rather than speak about me, I'd like to say thank you as a Queensgate resident and perhaps on behalf of other Queensgate residents to those who've done so much work over the last 4 years, perhaps without my neighbours and residents even knowing. So to start off with, thank you to Councillor Mackover and Councillor Lane for all the work that they've done representing our community the last 4 years, the support they've given me, and everything that has been accomplished standing up for our residents. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to our leadership team. I think we've heard tonight in the budget with so many outstanding rankings that we really have. It really is peak performance now following last year's reshuffle, and I think that with all the turbulence going on in national politics, that whatever happens in May, I hope that we'll get some consistency and continuity for a long time to come. Particular thanks, I think, have to go to our leader, Councillor Campbell, who has done an incredibly difficult job over the last few years. And in my experience, having been up and down the country, knocking on doors, campaigning in councils everywhere, I think it's fair to say the residents here don't realise how good they've got it. And many councillors, I think, don't realise how lucky we are to have Councillor Campbell as a leader. I have pulled my hair out in some of my dealings with councils elsewhere at some of well, questionable decisions and ability. And I don't think she gets enough credit, and that we say it often enough, and I know she's far too humble to really to make a big deal out of it. But we are genuinely lucky, and it has been a privilege to serve on this council as one of her backbench councillors. I'd also like to thank Councillor Addenbrooke, who is our Chief Whip. I think we've had a pretty happy, particularly compared to the unified opposition party we have in this borough, that the Conservative group has been such a happy place to be a part of the last few years. And I think in no small part is that due to our Chief Whip, who I think really treats us all as she's our group mother. I think or sister, I should say elder sister, who has fed us and given us drink on many occasions, and whenever she's needed to, has been an iron fist and a velvet glove. So I'd like to thank her for all her support. In terms of Queensgate, thank you to Catherine Folkes for all the work she does for the High Street in Kensington. When I was first elected, I thought it was too big a mouthful to bite off, but the fact that she always has her contagious smile and manages to do incredible work to try and clean that up I'm very grateful to. I'm running out of time, so thank you very much to Councillor Kamali for his indefatigable war on waste, which I know residents have been incredibly appreciative of. Perhaps not the ones who've been issued with fines, but at least they hopefully won't do it again. It was heartwarming to find a fellow traveller when it comes to cracking down on that. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Councillor Thalassides for his vision when it comes to our public public realm and how we're building the borough and creating really a legacy that will outlive, I think, even not just me going in May, but all of us on this council with what's being created, particularly with his public realm schemes, in particular, obviously, the ones in Gloucester Road, both in Courtfield and the one that's being proposed in my ward in Queensgate. Thanks in that regard also to Councillor McVeigh for giving us the impetus when, as the candidates, the three of us, she said that Gloucester Road was starting to look really tidy and sad, and that really it could do a lot better. So I hope she will embrace the changes on Gloucester Road as her legacy also. I'd like to say, finally up, Mr. Mayor, very quickly, my final hurrah. I'd like to thank Councillor Knight as Chairman of Adults and Social Care and Health Committee. I think when all of us have been jaded by ICBs and NHS and all sorts of bureaucratic jargon, and feeling rather sceptical and down about things, she's restored our faith in the ability of politics and councillors to do things and make positive change. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Councillor Will, whom I don't think there are words that I don't think I can find the words to say to truly thank for the support she's given and the advice and guidance over the last 4 years. And so even though we're going our separate ways, wherever our different paths may take us and diverge, I'd like to say a huge thank you all for your friendship, for your support, your kindness over the last few years, and I will miss you very much.
Councillor Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, how do I follow all of this? When I first stood for council in 1994, there were no vacancies in my home ward of Pembridge. In fact, there weren't any until 2018. So I cut my teeth in fighting in Colville before being elected in Churchwood in Chelsea. And then that vanished in a boundary change. So I moved to Abingdon. Finally, in 2022, I did make it to Pembridge. And so that's Kings Road, Kensington High Street and Notting Hill Gate. Not a bad repertoire. It's been the most amazing journey, and along the way I've met the most wonderful people, from residents to the voluntary sector, businesses, council officers and fellow councillors. The thing that binds us all together is our love for the borough and the desire to do our best. I genuinely say that I've loved all my wards that I've honoured to serve, and whilst you're not supposed to have a favourite child, my love for my home ward of Pembridge, knowing its foibles and where it needs some TLC, has made it the most rewarding for me. It's been a true honour and a privilege to serve its residents. And although a trip to one of my local supermarkets now involves me returning with more shopping and lots more casework, it's a long trip these days. A former councillor reminded me that the other day that we made our maiden speeches about the noise nuisance team. And I hear Councillor Lane saying he took a day off work. Well, actually, I went out all night with the noise nuisance team. So I think they're a bit lightweight, these new councillors. But seeing officers working with residents on services like this leads me to say a massive, massive thank you to the officers, both current and former, who have helped me during my time on the council. And I particularly flag Laverne in that. Yeah. So I know we've got quite a few of officers like me who are retiring, and I wish each of them all the best. I've seen a lot of changes in my time. Most noticeably was the change from the committee system, where decisions were made by members in a committee with a chairman, and that was back in 1998. And then the arrival in 2002 of a cabinet and scrutiny system. And that was a massive learning curve for everyone. Over my 22 years as councillor, I have worked alongside councillors of all persuasions, political and otherwise. But there are too many to thank individually, and so I thank you all collectively. I don't think many residents realise how much time we put into the job and the nights we give up for the meetings. It's time now for me to take back control of my life and join my recently retired husband to do some of our things for a change. And Mr. Mayor, it's been an absolute honour and a privilege to serve in various capacities in this council, but none of them has been as humbling or as rewarding as serving the borough residents. And I wish this council, all its officers, and all who serve as councillors now and in the future, much success.
Thank you. Councillor Schmetterling.
Following the terminology of Councillor Wheaton-Sands, I have to say when I joined the council, our brother or father was Councillor Gerard Hargreaves. And I have to say he reminded me of a former boss who looked a lot like him, except he was a bit taller. But anyway, it's been a pleasure and honour serving the residents of Pembridge as councillor since 2018. And the whole borough through membership of committees, a council-nominated trustee on Citizen Advice, KNC, and being the Deputy Mayor. And that was 23-24, and it was great fun and lovely to work with Councillor Pretty Hudd. And thank you to the Mayor's officers. It has been a pleasure to work with our team in the Council, and in this context, thank you also to my fellow retiree, Councillor Joanna Gardner, for all the good work that you do in the ward. I've even had some good cooperation with members of the Labour opposition, and this, of course, is how it should be. As always, there are so many people to thank, so in general, it's safer not to name anyone, almost. I thank the most helpful officers in planning, licensing, highways, rubbish collection, and so on. In 2018, I guess the post-Grenfell cohort, we were offered assistance in settling in various ways, small and large. I remember accepting a tour of the offices by Robert Shepherd, in charge of governance, and thinking it all looked the same, and wondering how I would ever find my way around the building. Probably still true. And I also remember asking, knowing nothing about a week in, where I could have a desk in the town hall. Exactly. I must say that Robert was very diplomatic and said he thought that something could be found. But I soon found out that we had the members' room and anyway did not need a formal desk. We were also offered longer-term support by officers, which some of us took up. And I think it is okay to mention one senior officer as she has retired, namely Heidi Titcomb, my mentor in 2018. In short, Heidi was very good and helpful all the time, including specifically even during my time in licensing, of course, where I still am. I do recall a Yes Minister moment when we were having an early one-to-one session. Heidi had a pile of papers in front of her. At the end of the session, she pushed the pile across the table towards me. In fairness, the papers are well worth reading and did not conceal a really critical issue at the bottom of the pile. Anyway, finally, I'd like to wish the candidates designated as our successors good luck in the elections on 7th of May 2026 to keep Pembridge Ward fully blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dorene.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is with much sadness that my family and I are moving on after what has been 12 very special years in Kensington and Chelsea. 6 years in North Kensington, 6 years in Earls Court, and for myself, of course, serving for 8 of those years as councillor for Earls Court. Over that time, I have been privileged and indeed proud to have represented my fellow residents from many different walks of life, representing them and the area, the wider community, working on projects and initiatives across Earls Court and, of course, in my role as the council on all the various committees, dealing with many local challenges in Earls Court, but also many opportunities as well. And I trust that my successors will be able to continue pushing these forward in the best interests of what is, and I think can be even more, a great part of our great borough. Mr. Mayor, I won't pretend that 8 years gives me the right to too many reflections, but I would like to offer a small number of thoughts and acknowledgements. First of all, I think from my experience as a country, perhaps, we do need to find a better balance between democratic mandate and professional expertise. Both must work well together in a modern democratic nation. If we lose that balance, if we risk democracy giving way to bureaucracy, we risk eroding trust in democratic change. And that, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe is a path any of us want to take. But at the same time, delivery change will always depend on good working relationships, mutual respect, trust, understanding, communication. And in that spirit, I would like to thank many of the officers that I have had the opportunity to work with over the years, who have performed their role to the best of their abilities. They are a credit to this council. But we must not forget our primary role as councillors. It is far too easy to fall into that comfortable trap of just telling your residents what cannot be done. While that has its place at times, we must always strive to find the new solutions, representing our residents to the council, not the other way around. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to turn now to a few acknowledgements. Though unfortunately she isn't able to be here this evening, I must thank my wonderful partner Laura for all her love and support. I just don't know where I would be without her. And thank you. And to my wonderful children as well, who I'm sure will be happy I'm not disappearing to strange meetings in the evenings. I obviously must thank all my fellow group members, members of the minority party that I've had the opportunity to work with as well. You all wish you very well in the future. I won't spend too much time naming everyone, but thank you very much. I will make one particular acknowledgement, though, however, and that is to Councillor Wade. Linda, you have been a fine political rival, but also friend and colleague, and I know we both care very deeply about Earls Court, and I know we've managed to work well together over the years. I wish you well for the future, and likewise to Councillor Verboven as well as he moves on. It's been a pleasure. Two final acknowledgements, if I may, Mr. Mayor. First of all, to the memory again of the late, great Councillor Spalding, who was a colleague, friend and mentor, and I regret not having the opportunity to serve with him the last 4 years. And I shall end, Mr. Mayor, as I began 8 years ago, by paying tribute again to the memory of all those who perished in the Grenfell fire disaster, and to all the bereaved and survivors as they sought to rebuild their lives in the aftermath and the years since. I have never forgotten the events of that night, Mr. Mayor, and I never will. Thank you. It's been an honour to serve.
Councillor Wade, would you like to speak?
I would just like to say that Hamish has been such a pleasure to work with, and it's been very good to be able to discuss things which we, as we said, didn't perhaps agree on some of the things, but I should say 98% of the time we did agree, we did talk things through, and that was a real pleasure, and I think residents in Earls Court really did appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. I think that's a very nice sentiment to conclude on. Are there any other members who are standing down who would wish to speak? Councillor Dentcote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Until recently, I was having doubts about standing for election. I was wavering. But the revelation on the 2nd of February at the Spy Cops inquiry that our communities were very likely, as so many suspected, spied on after Grenfell was the final betrayal. This council must have known that undercover police were infiltrating local groups to spy on and discredit them. I am tired of being misrepresented, sidelined, misdirected, and sometimes even lied to by this council. Certain senior councillors and certain senior officers treat opposition councillors with contempt, ignoring the mandate of elected North Kensington councillors to represent their constituents. And to those who have always acted with integrity, and you know who you are, I thank you for your honesty and for your service, as I thank those of my colleagues and former colleagues who will continue to serve. When the council conceals information from ward councillors about plans which affect their ward, it amounts to political manipulation. The two Kroll audit reports clearly expose this when the council's own lawyers advised them not to consult on the dodgy deal with Warnington College, referring to myself and Councillor Mason thus: if a rogue councillor or third party started making noise about RBKC doing deals in secret, they would have to put out a statement. Once we have completed, we will issue a statement. When the government bought back the college for the community, the council had lost £15 million. Mr Mayor, this custom continues with impunity, as we were heard earlier this evening. We were promised Hillsborough honesty and transparency, but got half-decent policies that are never implemented and dishonest press releases. We are deliberately kept out of consultations and barely mentioned in the so-called Charter of Participation. I no longer see this as an omission. This is entirely deliberate to keep opposition party members at a disadvantage and make fun of us. Our struggling communities are kept in patronised servitude, where the Grenfell Council expects endless gratitude for the Hunger Games played with our money. I'm no longer willing to be seen as an accomplice in your ongoing failures. The commitment I made to my communities in North Kent 20 years ago will be better served outside this council, which I intend to do in the run-up to the 10th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire. So good luck to all of those standing against the majority. Don't trust anyone. Free Palestine.
Would any other members wish to speak on this item? Okay, Councillor. Okay, let's just simmer down. Okay. Councillor Benton, let's just simmer down. Councillor El Nagi. Councillor, let's just take it down a notch, okay? I'm calling on Councillor El Nagi, who's not seeking re-election. Councillor El Nagi.
Thank you very much. Sorry to start at this heated debate there. Very good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great privilege for me to stand for the election in 2018, soon after the Grenfell disaster. Being an academic, this was my first maiden speech when I started. That's what brought me into politics, which I'm still continuing, and being given this opportunity to serve my community and be maybe a good example in terms of serving my community. Even I had people and residents and businesses reaching out to me from Chelsea to help them in some council issues. And the officers, they were great help and support. I would like to start first from where my friend Councillor Dorene left, by paying a tribute to my fellow vice chair. When I chaired the Grenfell Recovery Scrutiny Committee, I was the first and last chair, which it was a great privilege to involve academia, research, try to understand the complexity of what we've been left with in terms of trauma for our community. And the council, they tried in a certain way with officers to help my community. And Councillor Spalding, Malcolm, nobody knows that. I did not share this with anybody. He called me around 10 o'clock at night about certain issue. We were talking for about half an hour, which we were going to include in my discussion for the committee. And then we heard the news, the following, that he passed away. So may God bless his soul. And the other thing is, I really do encourage our young people and residents to become councillor and serve their community even for a short while. And it was a great privilege to represent the council in a good way on Westway Trust, where I served 6 years as a chair of Property in Place. I initiated the link, which took me 5 years. I've done a review. Now it's being led by Imperial College. So hopefully that underpass will be very short journey going around linking to White City, where Imperial College investing very heavily, about 2 billion. And one of the biggest challenge to me was setting up the Friends of Avondale Park. It took me more than 3 years. Now we have a very active committee, so hopefully you will all visit Avondale Park. and I am very proud to be part on the committee of Holland Park. So I asked Chair to link the two, and she was very supportive in that. And finally, I know the evening is too long. I'm really grateful to all the councillors, especially Kim, Saf, who has helped me on the community baking challenge or cooking challenge. I don't know what we call it. It's the big cook-off challenge, yeah? So this year is going to be a big one, community event. I hope all of you will come. Johnny, he was very good, very supportive, and Siren as well. Saf, she came with me. Please forgive me if I miss out any of you, but it was a great time to be together. And Kim, thank you so much for making the biggest challenge in our salad as the Lebanese is making tabbouleh. And Kim, when he was trying to chop the parsley, he said, "Is it enough?" Oh my God, this is 10 times the size we want. So we tried to cut it very, very tiny and small. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me this opportunity. It's great to serve my community, great to represent the council, and I will still continue in that journey, being an academic lead now for the British Computer Society in London, where we have 10,000 members. I'm leading on AI in terms of third sectors. We are having a big conference by Brunel University. Citizen science we initiated by UCL. I'm meeting the director next week from Imperial College. So I hope I represent my council in a good way, and thank you all for your support, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Jeddat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to summarize my 4 years of working for Dalgano Ward's residents, because I don't believe there was a council like me, and I don't believe there would be one like me. It is partially by the virtue of being unique, and partially because of extreme hostile environment created by the Labour purging, its members bearing a smallest mark of socialism. I personally believe in Catholic social teaching, rooting in Scripture and Papa Rerum Noverum, with co-focus of building a just society, promoting peace. I believe, truly tell you, as you did this to one of the latest of those brothers and sisters of mine, you have done it to me. I was brought up in a spirit of teaching of John Paul Great II, which is rooted in profound Christian humanism that affirms the absolute dignity of every human being, every person created in God's image, and to call to live in truth. I have kept my Dalgano Ward introduction leaflet, dated 2022, where I describe myself as a long-standing activist for human-animal rights, lamenting of loss of biodiversity. I made a promise to serve all my residents by taking casework, and I work very hard, being on 5 scrutiny committees, including planning and a flood risk management working group. Little I knew that representing my residents during planning application committee in 2023 would be the starting point for public humiliation and distress, ending up on ITV News as a hater. And only a few months later, I was made into a hit target, and my case was caught by the international attention by Robert Spencer, an expert of Islamism and jihad. I would never imagine that going into local government as a good Samaritan, white and woman, will involve seeking help from Christian concern or freedom of speech union, and hold on to John Paul's call to have courage. He made this call in 1973 when he visited Poland, his homeland, speaking diplomatically and pointedly about the relationship between church and the communism. Poland in 1973 was a country behind the Iron Curtain, where freedom of speech landed many in trouble with government. The national media were instructed not to show how large crown covered. Faithful living in fear were stopped from attending. His instructions were simple: have courage, don't be afraid. I would never dream to see and experience the some hostile condition created in UK. I am grateful to all who have supported me in these hard times, mostly when I was smeared, called a racist Islamophobe bitch by the Kensington and Chelsea officer, having my own residents antagonized against me for no reason. Even under a week, once again I was told to shut up by the black sitting councillor trying to throw me out of the public meeting. I worked very hard. We tried to improve our surroundings. We managed to put street lamps in little scraps. We stopped flooding. We will have many memorable events to ponder on, the Queen's Jubilee, and sadly Labour didn't give us any money to celebrate the King's coronation. The only hope that the possible corporate manslaughter charges will deliver justice and change, starting from appointing the new monitoring officer and so-called ethic panel. Thank you that, again, you discriminated against me because you gave so much time to lame and over people, and you are rushing me when you know I have asthma. Well, thank you very much for this discrimination. And nobody in this chamber congratulated me on the maiden speech. If you could just conclude your remarks. Thank you for discriminating against North Kensington. Thank you for being so incredibly patronizing and unbearable, and what you have done to me through all these complaints by ganging and not exhibiting what was about to the public scrutiny, absolutely unacceptable. And this is how you treat residents. I have single glazed residents living in molten condensation, and you congratulate yourself. Okay. God bless.
Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to, well, we don't have time for any... We don't have time for any motions. We move on to item 15, appointments to committees and outside organisations. Do group whips have any appointments to propose?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No. Okay. There is no urgent business. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is the annual Council meeting, scheduled to be held on the 27th of May 2026, starting at 6:30 p.m, which will be followed by the concurrent meeting of all Council side committees. Good evening.